Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what if Naruto trained by Yamamoto Bleach. Before I start, please support for more amazing content and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by champblaze and link in description and support writer. Let's start the video. Konoha's Eternal Flame. Music. Which theme Bleach TYBW epic orchestral cover. Rain falls heavily as the upper part of his body is severed from the rest, from his left shoulder to his waist, as it falls to the ground. He was losing a lot of blood, but it was a miracle that he was still conscious at that point. I can't give up, I have a duty to fulfill, he thought. His vision is blurred and he didn't even feel anything anymore, but it didn't matter as he was still alive. You're a fool, Jinrikisai Shijakuni Yamamoto, a calm and cold voice said, but he would remember it forever. Time has made you weak, that's why I never considered you as one of the war potentials. 1,000 years ago you would have been at the top of the list, but by now you are just a shell of yourself, the voice continues. Yamamoto's right arm moves with an unthinkable speed for someone reduced like him, but he still manages to grab his opponent's ankle, slowly starting to crush it with all the strength he had left. Yamamoto didn't even notice the moment when his arm was cut cleanly at the elbow, making him completely limbless. Damn you, Iwich, Yamamoto thought. He could still hear Iwich's voice, his enemy is in front of him, yet he could do nothing about it. After a few seconds Yamamoto sees a blue glow growing larger and more intense. Even in the state in which he was reduced, he could see that it was an attack. A very powerful attack against him, perhaps his stolen Bankai. Farewell, Jinrikisai Shijakuni Yamamoto, Iwich says, and with a violent explosion, no trace of him remained, but only a broken, scorched sword was left as evidence of his loss. Song ends. You can open your eyes now, voice declares. Jinrikisai Shijakuni Yamamoto, former captain commander of the Gatei 13, eyes suddenly open, surprised by the voice he had just heard. Yamamoto looks around, but realized he was inside an oriental-style room with a polished wooden table in front of him. A large parchment is hanging on the wall to his left, above which is the kanji for order. You look disoriented, but I think it's normal after all that's happened to you, said the other occupant of the room, currently sitting on the other side of the table with his intent on pouring tea into 2 cups. However, I can tell you that after a few minutes the feeling of nausea you may be experiencing will disappear, the man opposite Yamamoto says. Yamamoto shifts his gaze to the man who had just spoken, and his eyes widen in surprise. Ichib Himesub. What happened? Yamamoto says. Ichib would have found it interesting to see the infamous captain commander of the Gatei 13 behave in such a manner, but he had a mission to accomplish and little time was available, so he passes a cup full of tea to Yamamoto. Which has happened? You fought him, or you fought against a Quincy that you thought was him, but when the real one appeared, he managed to defeat you and kill you in no time. This is what the Soul King told me, Ichib says. Yamamoto seems surprised and distressed, but manages to conceal his emotions by looking down, being surprised again to see that he has both arms now. He raises his left arm and tried to move it, but nothing feels strange, as if he never lost it in the battle against Aizen. How, Yamamoto says. The Soul King, together with the intervention of the Zero Division, we succeeded in recreating your body and preserving your spirit, Ichib explains and sips his cup of tea. Your death occurred recently, yesterday to be precise, so it was relatively easy, he adds. Why did the Soul King do it? He wishes me to face it, which again asks Yamamoto, recovering the calmness for which he is or was known for. Far from it, you are dead, Jinrikisai. The Soul King has already made an exception to the rule to get you back, but not to face Iwich again. He has wishes for you to solve another problem, a problem that could be as serious as our war against the Quincy's, Ichib says. Another problem? What problem could rival the current crisis? Iwich has my Bankai and seeks to kill the Soul King, Yamamoto says. But she will fail to do. The Soul King's concern lies in the Otsutsuki air race that infects things wherever they go, draining places of both chakra and souls as they become their playthings, breaking the cycle of rebirth, Ichib says. So you wish for me to deal with the Otsutsuki threat, Yamamoto says, and Ichib nods. The Otsutsuki only number in 5 and each are stealing souls I am sending back to your original world, Ichib says, and Yamamoto looks upon him with incredulous eyes. My original world? Yamamoto says, and the commander of the Royal Guard nods. More precisely, previous world. You were born in the Soul Society as Jinrikisai Shijakuni Yamamoto, but you were once Naruto Uzumaki. You wouldn't remember, as souls born here lose everything of their previous life. However, I can solve said problem, Ichib says, and picks up a huge brush, writing 2 words on Yamamoto's left breastplate. Suddenly a rush of memories flood the old Shinigami's head of his life as Naruto Uzumaki, 13 years of living for a village who did not care, battling his once best friend, or in his eyes friend, and his death at the hands of said friend. You lived a sad life and died at the hands of someone you believed a friend. However, this was coerced by an Otsutsuki named Code. He knew of your importance and silenced you before you came into your powers. With your death, you and Kickbeer Yusaka died, or so you believe, as she has never left your side, Ichib explains. Rikkin-Jaka Yamamoto says, immediately. That's right Kit, you and I have been intertwined since your birth and rebirth, Rikkin-Jaka Yusaka says. Now it is time for you to return as a flame of cleansing, Ichib says and rises. Once you pass through this special Sankamen you will have a body of flesh and bone, your Shinigami powers will remain, and your chakra with all the skills acquired by Naruto Uzumaki. Once finished with the Otsutsuki you will live in that world as a reward for your 1000 years of service by the Soul King, he adds. Yamamoto sees the Sankamen open and makes his way towards it. I wish you luck in your war, Ichib Himesoup, he says. And you with yours, Jinrikisai Shijakuni, Yamamoto, Ichib says, and the captain commander of the Gate 13 passes through. Maybe I'll send you a little help, he adds. U umlaut o acute o umlaut I grav macron. The first thing Yamamoto sees is blue sky as he lays on a beach, but notices he felt much stronger than before and above all younger as he stands. He looks down and he is still wearing his tattered shihakishima but could see the difference in his body. He has de-aged to his mid or early 20s, his body is muscular and tempered like when was Jinrikisai Shijakuni Yamamoto. His scars on his face were missing and his blonde hair short, but his upper body maintained their scars, even the slash given by a witch. Hit, since we're in this world should we start using our old names, Yusaka says. Yamamoto continues to look upon himself, but a smile forms on his face. I believe I shall, Yusaka, Naruto says, and decides to explore the island. He would spend a month on the island and learn it was the land of Whirlpool and birthplace of his original clan. He would also find a trove of precious jewels and a crash course in Kenjutsu. Flashing this number of jewels would bring unnecessary attention, Yusaka says, as Naruto reaches the beach. Indeed, learning about the seals will hide them, Naruto says, holding her sword. It is katana with a dark purple handle, a circular bronze handguard and a red sheath. He launches off the beach and heads for the main continent, namely Eastern Fire Country, and finds a large town, but finds things have advanced since his time here. He finds a jeweler and sells some for some cash to buy clothes, but also essentials like food, weapons and scrolls. Should we head to Konoha and find out how much time has passed since your death, Yusaka says, as Naruto leaves a clothing shop. He wears hybrid Hakama cargo pants with a black belt and combat boots, a long sleeve shirt that is slightly fitted. Lastly, a full leather jacket and vest combo in a red, black and black, having a fiberfill lining. The vest is slip-on with a high neck, lace-up adjusters on the sides, and bat-like logo embossed on the chest. While the jacket has the symbol embossed on the back, a fixed hood with belted collar, zipper sleeves with adjustable belts and asymmetrical pockets on the sides. Lasumisura replica-style red hood, men's full leather jacket plus vest. They could be corrupted by the Otsutsuki, Naruto says. A calculated risk but only a cursory look, Yusaka says, as Naruto vanishes and heads for his former village. The henge would be best as well, Yusaka says, as Naruto comes to halt on a tree branch. Agreed, Naruto says and drops down, before using a henge for the first time. He assumes the form of an old man with a long grey beard and bald head in his black Shinigami robes. Going with Jinrikisai Shijakuni, Yamamoto, Yusaka says. No one will suspect some old man, Naruto says. About 1 hour of travel he sees the gates of Konoha, but seems the village has expanded geographically and now occupies much more space than before. He could still see the Hokage mountain, which now consists of 6 heads but is definitely farther away. Kakashi has become Hokage, Naruto thought, heading for the big gate but sees 2 familiar faces to him. Are those? Yusaka says and Naruto sighs. Halt. State your business. Katetsu said, raising one hand to stop Naruto. Greetings youngsters, I wish to visit Konoha after such a long time, Naruto says, and Izumo smiles at him. Well then you will surely be surprised, Konoha has made enormous progress in recent years, Izumo says. Oh, I can see that last time I was here there were only 4 faces with plans for a 5th on that mountain, Naruto says. Well, that was at least 10 years. Lady Tsunade was Godame and Lord Kakashi is Rakudame, Katetsu says. After a few minutes, he was given a temporary pass, and so Naruto could finally enter Konoha after years of absence with a map, as the village has a second ring of walls, divided into New and Old Konoha. The village seems more metropolitan, some stores advertise 24 hours services and numerous condos. A whole 10 years, Naruto thought. Everyone will be adults, Yusaka says. Yes, Konohamaru should be on a team or even has his own, Naruto thought, soon reaching the original Konoha walls and shows his pass having the name Jinrikisai Shijakuni Yamamoto. Old Konoha was an updated version of his old haunts and he sees a very familiar but upgraded Ichiraku. Gucci has expanded into a full restaurant, Naruto thought, entering, and a waitress guides him to a booth. He rests Yusaka in the form of a fox head cane next to him as he looks through the menu, ordering several bowls and a soda. Naruto finishes and moves around to keep his eyes set for any familiar faces, which happens a few minutes later when he sees a familiar trio of ninja walking in the opposite direction to him, all 3 with green vests on top of their clothes. No Shikacho, Naruto thought, seeing Team 10 and nostalgia hits him but continues on. He heads for the library to enter the big building and stop in front of the main counter. "Good afternoon, may I help you?" A ninja greets him at the main counter. "Yes, could you point me towards the section with historical texts? I would like to consult some books about the latest events here in Konoha," Naruto says, like unassuming old man. "But of course, please follow me," the ninja says and guides Naruto to two huge shelves, pointing to a series of books. These texts cover the entire history of Konoha from its foundation to the present, but for what you have requested these two will suffice, the ninja says and picks up two books, one with the Konoha symbol on the cover and the other with the symbol of the Land of Fire. Naruto thanks him before taking the two books and going to sit at an empty table. Opening the first book, he begins to read it for a few hours before moving on to the second, skipping several chapters that he was not interested in. "Your granny announced you were the Yondame's child, despite many celebrating your demise," Yasaka says, and Naruto remains silent. 3 years later, Sasuke Uchiha surrendered himself after killing Orochimaru and Itachi Uchiha. He aids in the rebellion of Danzo Shimura and Hisna, but could not save Godame Hokage Tsunade Senju. "Sorry kid," she adds, and the rest didn't concern him. "So Sasuke is welcomed right back as if killing me was no big thing," Naruto thought, closing the book. Deep underground, 4 figures were sitting around a table with one laying on a beanbag. "Someone dangerous has come here," one says. He is a young man in his late teens with short turquoise hair that has pink streaks in it. A beauty mark on the upper corner of his mouth, purple eyes and yellow pupils, and pronounced canine teeth. He wears a red hoodie jacket with star patterns over a turquoise shirt, red jeans tied with a white belt and dark sandals. How dangerous demon, the lone female of the group of 4. She has long blue hair with loops on the tips and pink streaks and a beauty mark under the outer corner on both of her eyes. Her eyes are turquoise with uniquely crescent moons wrapped around the darker eyes that curve to the right. She wears an off-the-shoulder blouse with bishop sleeves, a necklace with a crescent moon, a small star pendant, dark shorts, and her black high-heel sandals with blue heels. "Strong as code or stronger," demon says. "Another Otsutsuki," one Sasuke Uchiha says. He wears a gray, long-sleeve, high-collar shirt over a periwinkle vest, black pants and a purple belt. Code narrows his eyes and drinks his wine. "We'll check the login sheet for new arrivals," he says. He is young, lanky adult with large green eyes and disheveled curly auburn hair, with a studded belt covering part of his scalp and face, crossing from above his right eye to below his left eye, partially hiding the facial scars. He wears a long-sleeved black shirt with a black, lavender and white waistcoat, white cravat with black pants. The right half of his waistcoat and the ends of both pants and sleeves have a lined lavender section. "They've already vanished," demon says. "I'll have na check outgoing people," Sasuke says, snapping his fingers and a few shadows flickers. "So Konoha is a no-go zone, what now?" Yasaka says. Naruto is moving from Konoha towards the west, still in his Yamamoto henge. "I'll head to Suna then Iwakumo and Kiri for information. Not many will pay any mind to old man," he says. "True, but you have company," Yasaka says. From the trees around him, several men suddenly appear dressed in dark clothes, but all different from each other. Naruto understood that they were a group of missing nin with a quick glance, as all of them have a headband with a line engraved through the symbol of their former villages. "Hey old man." One said and takes a step forward. "If you want to pass you have to pay a fee," he says, and his comrades laugh, as if they had just heard something funny. Naruto could only cover his face with a prolonged sigh. "Today's children are truly disrespectful," he says, and the missing nin take massive offense. "Perhaps a spanking is in order," he adds. None of them understood what happened next, but in a single instant all found themselves on their knees being crushed by a monstrous pressure. Most of them also have tears in their eyes, foam coming out of their mouths and dark patches between their trousers. "Now I don't have the patience to teach infants like you how to breathe," Naruto says, his tone calm and his open eye focused on the man who had spoken. His eyes are full of terror as Naruto closes in. "He did nothing. Yet he had reduced us to this state. I've felt the negative auras of both the Hachibi and Nibi, yet this is nothing compared to what I'm feeling now," he thought. "Before you faint," Naruto says and leans but drops his henge. "Tell everyone the Red Hood has come," he says, as the missing nin collapses. "Red Hood," Yasaka says, as Naruto vanishes. "These clothes remind me of the Red Hood," Naruto says, heading for the Land of Wind. A few days later, Naruto is coming towards Sungakir's entrance, which is simply a space between 2 rock walls, but he sees smoke rising from the village. "Halt." One guard shouts, seeing Naruto coming. "Is something wrong?" Naruto says. "Yes, we are denying entrance," the second guard says. Naruto leans on his fox head can with a sigh. "I have traveled a long way and now I'm not allowed in such disrespect these days," he says. "What is going on?" a voice says, before either guard could speak. "Lady Tamari," both say. Tamari has teal eyes and sandy blonde hair tied in 4 pigtails, dressed a dark teal battle kimono with a light obi and gloves. Reading Lady Tamari, I am here to see your brother Gaara, Naruto says, and Tamari narrows her eyes. Really, you know my brother? Unfortunately, our village has been attacked and Gaara has been kidnapped by 2S rank missing nin, Tamari says, and Naruto narrows his eyes under his hood. Perhaps I can help, Naruto says. We have a wandering doctor aiding us, but she said something cryptic, someone having a cane would come and he will save my brother. She even gave his name. Are you Jinrikisai Shijakuni Yamamoto, Tamari says, and Naruto's eyes, but maintains a calm face. Yes, I go by Jinrikisai Shijakuni Yamamoto, and I will save Gaara. Which way have the missing nin headed, Naruto says. They went northwest. One of them created a sort of large white bird, and the other, according to Kankuro, was Sasori of the red sand, Tamari says. Naruto removes his hood and Tamari somewhat recognizes his face as his cane become a sheathed sword. I'll bring him back and I'll meet this mysterious doctor, he says and vanishes. Music. Treachery, Bleach OST loop. That went well, Sasori Danahem, the mad bomber, Deidara says, with a grin, while looking at the unconscious form of Gaara being carried in the mouth of his clay bird. We wasted enough time, Sasori says. You don't really know when to relax. We have captured the Jinchuriki, now we just need to meet at the base and the game is done, Deidara said, while shaking his head. I don't like wasting time either, so I will interfere with your plans, a voice says. Both Deidara and Sasori's eyes widen in shock before looking up to where the voice came from, and they were stunned to see Naruto hovering above them. Naruto didn't hesitate for a moment before drawing his sword and cutting a wing of the clay creature, which began to fall towards the underlying desert, but both Deidara and Sasori managed to land successfully with a jump. Naruto appears a few meters from them, but Deidara hurls several small white spiders at him that grow instantly before exploding once they were close to the blonde swordsman. The missing nin of Iwa grins with satisfaction, but after a few moments, his grin disappears from his face when he sees Naruto still standing and perfectly unharmed. Release Gaara now, Naruto says, staring at them with a calm face, but both Akatsuki members know he is ready to fight. Deidara shifts his gaze slightly to look at Gaara, still unconscious in the jaws of his creation, but his gesture did not go unnoticed. Do not even think about it, Naruto said, in a lapidary voice. I think we will. Deidara retrieve the Jinchuriki and take it to the hideout. I'll take care of this nosy child, he could turn out to be a very good puppet after all, Sasori says. Child. Naruto says, a few veins on his neck bulging. Two large centipedes of clay suddenly sprout up from the sandy ground and wrap around Naruto with their bodies. Deidara grins victoriously before running close to Gaara and raising a hand. Art is an explosion. Katsu. He shouts. The two centipedes explode, raising a large cloud of sand and smoke as Deidara creates another clay bird, taking Gaara with him before flying to a forest on the horizon. Sasori brings out a large metallic tail that sways like a scorpion or rattlesnake, snapping at Naruto, barely visible in the smoke. He wasn't surprised when his attack failed as Naruto blocks the tip of the tail with two fingers, looking at him with unimpressed eyes. Not many who could do what you just did, Sasori said, and tries to retract the tail, but without success. Your physical strength is noteworthy, he adds. Naruto remains silent before he vanishes and appears above Sasori with a punch coming down, destroying his head and most of the chest. However, Sasori's body is actually made of wood and metal, and but from the fake body a hooded figure lands a few feet away. You destroyed my Haruko, it was one of my favorites, you know, Sasori said, before pulling down his hood and showing a young face. The two adversaries observe each other in silence for a few seconds, but then Sasori shakes his head. I was thinking about which puppet to use to face you, but considering your strength, I decided that I would use them all, Sasori says, pulling off his Akatsuki robes and revealing himself as a puppet as well. Including myself, of course. Sasori declares and wastes no time, taking a scroll from his back and after some rapid hand seals. Two small tubes come out of the palms of his hand and Sasori generates two flying waves of flames that burns the sand and swallows Naruto instantly. Obviously this won't be enough to stop him, but I need just a few seconds to prepare my performance, Sasori says, taking the second scroll and unrolling it in front of him while opening a part of his chest with one hand. The flames around Naruto begin to fade and the former captain commander hears a long series of small explosions. That's a lot of puppets, Yusaka says, as Naruto looks up and he raises an eyebrow at seeing more than 100 puppets in red cloaks. Naruto settles his attention back on Sasori and he has 3 small scrolls in his hands before showing them, with one of them having the kanji for third, the second having the kanji for 8, with the third marked cage. Here are my last pieces, ones I care about most, Sasori says, with a smile before being swallowed by the white smoke of 3 explosions. 8 figures appear from the smoke around Sasori as Naruto didn't recognize 2, one a woman with ankle-length auburn hair and blue dress, and the other a dark-haired man with a black cloak. The remaining 6 were very familiar to Naruto, and this ignites the fire within him, Kit, Yusaka says, feeling her wielder's rage. Shocked. I will educate you. Let me to introduce you to the Sandame Kazukage Godame Mizukage Konoha's teammate Shizune Kato and the Godame Hokage Tsunade Senju Sasori says, with a little smile still on his face. Naruto's face is hidden in shadows as his gaze is on the puppet bodies of Tsunade, Shizune, Kiba Inuzuka, his Ninken partner Akamaru, Shino Aburame and Hinata Hyuga. Sasori places his hand on his right eye while his left hand makes a single seal and Hinata's eyes instantly change as a sign that he has activated her Byakugan. The no-has uprising perpetrated by Danzo Shimura afforded me them, however it took me several months, but I managed to gain a good amount of control over the famous Byakugan of the Hyuga clan and now I can see what my puppet sees, Sasori says, lowering his hand. Sasori's eyes closed and there was the kanji for eye visible on his eyelid as he makes chakra strings from the point of his fingers, linking them to his 8 puppets. Now are you ready for a little show, Sasori says. Naruto throughout Sasori's explanation remains frozen in place, but his sword ignites in hellish fire as Sasori secretly activated another scroll on his back, preparing a powerful water attack to counter Naruto's flames. My orders were absolute, but I refused to allow you to further desecrate their bodies in this way. At first I was determined to eliminate you quickly, however it is clear that you deserve an exemplary punishment, Naruto says, pure fury in his eyes, and slowly raises his flaming sword. Sasori is ready to fight back, but all those flames fade into nothingness and in the silence that follows this a strong feeling of fear tightens his heart cylinder. Bankai, Naruto utters coldly. Song ends. All the poison has been removed from his body, the wandering and prophetic doctor says. She is a beautiful woman with long black hair braided in the front and ocean blue eyes, a serene smile on her face, and wearing black robes with a white haori, having the kanji for 4 on the back. I see, thank you very much. Ms. Unohana Tamari said, bowing towards her and keeping a worried expression on her face. Now he needs rest, but I think he will be back to full health within a couple of days, Unohana says, with a smile, while looking at the unconscious form of Kankuro. Tamari was not only worried about her brothers, but she was dumbfounded by the technique used by Unohana to treat Kankuro and the other wounded. That wasn't Iram ninjutsu like used by the late Godame, I'm sure about it. I wonder what it could be, she thought. However, a sudden heat wave is felt by the whole village, causing Tamari to fall to her knees and feeling her throat dry, as well as the rest of her body. What is this? This heat is not normal. Tamari thought. Everyone seems to be feeling the effects of the sudden rise in temperature, except for Unohana as she is looking out of a window with calm eyes. The incessant heat only lasts for a few seconds fortunately, and much to everyone's confusion, the sunlight seems to disappear slowly. What now? Tamari says, breathing out and walks towards a window, but gasps at the sight of the sky covered with black clouds. This is? Tamari says, covering her mouth. A drop of water falls against the window glass, and then another and another, until the whole village is covered by a heavy downpour. This leaves everyone speechless, but especially those who have never witnessed such a phenomenon as children begin to play in the rain. It lasts for a few minutes, but is enough to cool the air, and Tamari continues to stare at the village with incredulous eyes. What happened? Tamari says. I think I know, Unohana says, surprising Tamari and looks to her. But to be sure it'll best I go, we'll be back with Gaara soon, don't worry, Unohana says and disappears, leaving behind a decidedly confused Tamari. Music. Cometh the hour, part AOPUS 1 Bleach OST loop. Naruto sheathes his sword as the temperature slowly drops while around him for miles and miles. The desert has become an expanse of glass, and around him that glass has even melted due to the temperature produced by his Bankai. His clothes were wet from the rain generated by the use of such powerful flames and were slowly drying thanks to the residual heat, but he didn't notice, simply looking at what was left of his opponent. I am glad that my powers haven't been weakened by the process of rebirth, Yasaka says, and Naruto's eyes narrow. However, I am surprised that there is something left of Sasori, she adds. His body was not made of flesh and blood, but of wood and metal after all, since only a partially melted metal skeleton remained of Sasori. Takrametal, Naruto says, after saying a prayer for the fallen Konoha compatriots. Takrametal MHMM makes sense, it metal is able to resist the Biju chakra, which extremely corrosive and destructive, still it survived all that heat, albeit in part, Yasaka says. Naruto looks around and notes that all the Sasori's puppets had been destroyed in those few moments, even though there were some partially fused parts belonging to several puppets. Their bodies are now at rest, Naruto says and closes his eyes for a moment. He concentrates on locating Gaara and Deidara, but soon opens his eyes. I expected too much, apparently S-rank missing Nin are not as fast as they think, Naruto says, sighing and vanishes. Meanwhile, Deidara is racing as fast as his clay bird can fly with drops of sweat trickling down his face and worried expression. I must notify the others immediately, he says, hoping to reach the hideout where the Ichibi should have been extracted from Gaara's body. However, a few minutes after leaving Sasori, a wave of monstrous heat well above the desert standard slams into him. It lasted only a few seconds, but Sasori Dana has to be dead from whatever that heat was. Deidara thought and holds his head, that monster is well beyond our reach. Maybe Boru Delta or Leader Sama can face him and hope to defeat him. Hell, I don't think even that old man of Lenoki could fight against him and survive. He says. A wave of relief washes him when he sees the canyon where the entrance to their hiding place was, and once inside he would activate all possible barriers to hide his presence. However, his hope becomes sheer terror as his clay bird reaches ground level and Naruto is waiting for him on a small stone in front of a giant boulder, a kiseru in his mouth, with his sword pointed at the ground and both hands crossed on the tip of the hilt. Shit. How did he get here before me? Deidara thought and sees Naruto is simply looking at him. Is he mocking me or did Sasori wear him out, he thought. He reaches both hands in two special bags hanging from his waist and pulls out two large amounts of white clay. The mouths on the palms of his hands begin to chew the clay before spitting out a dozen small birds. Die. Deidara roars, tosses all the birds towards Naruto, and his creations suddenly grow to become as big as the one he was standing on. A grin forms on Deidara's face when his creations were now very close to Naruto, and with a single hand seal, they explode and generate a powerful explosion that shakes the whole area. He wastes no time and creates other clay creatures and uses them in the same way. Over the course of several seconds, powerful explosions were echoing in the area as the missing nin of Iwa uses all the clay supply, but after a full minute decides to interrupt the attack. Deidara unconsciously holds his breath, but when the smoke generated by his explosions begins to clear, his heart loses a beat as Naruto is completely unharmed. He is surrounded by some sort of cubic light barrier that becomes invisible after a few seconds. What? No damage at all. Deidara thought in a panic. Have you exhausted everything you can? Naruto says and Deidara grits his teeth in anger. Fuck you. Are you trying to mock my art? Deidara shouts, but suddenly his head sails into the water near the canyon. Naruto rises from his rock with wide eyes as the figure opposite him has a small smile on her face. I would have arrived sooner, but I was admiring the glassing of the desert, she says, seeing his shocked eyes. Ever since arriving back in this world, several surprises showed him how much things have changed, but none of them were comparable to the shock he was feeling at this moment by seeing someone he thought he would never see again. Someone wearing the unmistakable Haori of the captains of the Gate 13. I think it's the first time I see you so surprised, that person said with a calm voice. Is seeing me here such a big surprise, she adds. The former captain commander stood still for a few seconds but shakes his head. I think you would have the same reaction in my place, Captain Retsu Anohana, Naruto says. Ch2. Land of Rivers Akatsuki hideout. Retsu Anohana, the former captain of the 4th Division of the Gate 13, smiles at him. Only a few days have passed yet to me, it seems like an eternity. Your death was a hard blow to the entire Gate 13, she says. Naruto remains silent before looking towards the sky. Those youngsters are strong, I have trained many of them, and I know what they are capable of, he says, and Retsu chuckles a bit. I knew you'd say that. Could you be interested in knowing who took your place, Retsu says. Naruto thinks for a few moments and nods. I may, but I need to return Gaara, he says, retrieving his old friend from Deidara's clay bird, and both captains vanish with no regard for the Iwa missing nin. Once the captains were gone, a strange figure emerges from the rock having shaggy green hair, pupil-less yellow eyes with a literal black and white side. Who were those two? The white side says, looking at Deidara's corpse. Who knows, but they are dangerous. However, it means Sasori is dead as well. Deal with Deidara and recover the rings, I'll inform leader, the darker side says. The creature known as Zetsu splits apart as the black half sinks into the ground while the white half devours Deidara and searches out Sasori. The dark half travels through the earth and arrives in an earthen chamber with large statue having 10 fingers pointing up. Father Deidara and Sasori failed to capture the Ichibi. They were killed by an unknown pair. Dark Zetsu calls out. Was it Mama Shiki Urashiki or Asiki's vessel? A regal voice of male and female says, from the shadows. I do not believe so, but both surpass the Gokujin power, Dark Zetsu says. Father cups their chin in thought. Contact the others and make them aware of the situation. See that you recover the rings as well, Kuro Zetsu, they say. Yes, Father, Kuro Zetsu says and sinks into the ground once again. In a place of perpetual rain, Father opened their eyes, revealing purple ripple patterned eyes having several tomo. One would question if Father were a man or woman, having red hair on the verge of white, short white eyebrows, and in a black cloak having red clouds. Who is this new player? How can this seedbed produce such a force? Father thought as a woman stands next to them like a statue. She has short straight blue hair and a bun, Rinnegan eyes with several piercing and the same cloak as Father. Both captains reach Suna quickly and were ushered to the hospital as Retsu looks over Gaara, noting he would be fine and would awaken soon. The captains leave the grateful Temari and head for a private conversation. While walking, Naruto notices how completely different the situation here is compared to Konoha. The difference between the two villages is practically the same as that between the Rukongai and the Sirite in the Soul Society. Were Konoha and Suna not allies despite Orochimaru? Asaka says. They were, but 10 years has passed, Naruto thought. How about some ramen? Retsu says, and Naruto freezes, but she smiles. Ichibime Soup also told me about your life as Naruto Uzumaki, and I know for a fact you love ramen, she adds, surprising the captain commander. Naruto looks at her with serious eyes. Were you sent here to help me, the Otsutsuki, he says, and Retsu smiles at him. That's right, like I said, let's talk about it over a cup of ramen, though I would prefer hot cinnamon buns, Retsu says, and with that, both head for a ramen stall. They each get a cup of ramen and head for one of Suna's park, but towards an isolated area. So how come you were sent here with me? I understand the reasoning in wanting to assist me, but your healing skills would be more useful in the Soul Society, especially now that they are at war with the Quincy, Naruto says, but a frown forms on his face, unless you two have reached the end, he says, sadly. Retsu smiles sadly as she tries some noodles. Unfortunately, you guessed right, but I didn't die at the hands of a Quincy, I died at the hands of the one I consider a worthy successor, she says, after. Naruto is surprised by her words, but nods as he finishes his ramen. That brat has finally figured out what it means to be a captain, he says, thinking Ichiraku cannot be beaten. But I don't know, Retsu says and chuckles a bit. What I do know is that he can finally do justice to the title of Kenpachi, she adds, and the former captain commander snorts. Well, he's no longer my problem, Central 46 constantly complained about him, Naruto says, and Retsu couldn't help but laugh. Anyway, have you been sent here just to assist me, he adds. Yes, that was the deal, but in return I can live my new life here. After all, I lived here before being reborn as a soul like you, Retsu explains and smiles. In fact, I lived during the period in which you were Naruto Uzumaki, she adds, and Naruto's eyes widen with a confused look. You saved me from bullies who were making fun of my eyes as children. You called me weird because of my actions like passing out in your presence or stuttering my words. You even avenged me against my foolhardy cousin during the Chunin exams, Retsu says, and hearing those words causes Naruto's eyes to widen comically. Hinata. Naruto says, shooting up from the bench. Hello, Naruto-kun, Retsu says, poking her fingers shyly. Naruto falls back on the bench and covers his face as Retsu laughs. Sorry, I needed to tease you a little, she says. You are completely different than Hinata, Naruto says. Yes, Hinata was soft-spoken, meek, no self-confidence, weak, Retsu says. Yet now you are brutal and cold-blooded, but can pull off a soft-spoken, polite, and a caring nature, Naruto says and looks her way. Which do you wish to be called, Hinata or Retsu, he adds. Retsu Anahana. Hinata Hyuga died in service of her cage, Retsu says, but activates the Byakugan, though having the Byakugan allows me to heal and kill much better, she adds. I see. I read Danzo lead an uprising. Did it lead to your death, Naruto says. He did, and it was after the death of Lord Jiraiya. Lady Tsunade was grief-stricken and put in motion plans to name Kakashi, as Hokage Danzo did not like this and lead as Na in claiming the seat for himself. With some help many lost their lives, but before I died, I learned of all people Sasuke returned to assist Konoha, Retsu explains and sees the saddened look on his face. How did Hirosenin die, Naruto says, feeling a bit weird saying such a name. Lady Tsunade was vague, but he was chasing a rumor in the land of rain, Retsu replies. Then we'll head to rain on our travels, Naruto says and pauses for a moment. Now that I know who you were, you should know Sasori had your original body as a living mockery, the same for your teammates, even Tsunade and Shizune, he adds, and Retsu's eyes were wide but narrow into slits. It's good you killed him with your Bankai, Retsu says, darkly, and Naruto nods as Suna and Anbu arrive. Lord Kazukiage is awake, the Anbu says, and has a look of fear on their hidden face. Thank you, Retsu says with a smile, and the Anbu vanish. Let's go see Gaara, she adds, and both vanish. Gaara stares blankly at the two people who saved him and brother. I owe you greatly for your actions, he says, sitting in wheelchair with his wife Mitsuri and adopted son Shinki. Not only did you become Kazukiage Gaara, but now you also have a family. You got what I always dreamed of as a child, Naruto says, ignoring the suspicious look of his old friend. Who are you, Gaara asks, seriously. Your words hurt me, Gaara, Naruto says, seeing a pen on a tray and grabs it to draw 6 whiskers on his cheeks. Gaara and Tamari's eyes widen incredulously at the blonde young man, and Naruto smiles. It's been a long time, Gaara, Naruto says. Then Naruto? Gaara says. In the flesh, Naruto says, smirking and cleaning his face. But that's not possible. You were killed 10 years ago by Sasuke Uchiha. Your body was never found, but everything pointed to you being dead, Gaara said, in an insecure voice. Even though he was hoping with all his heart that the person in front of him was really Naruto. My body was never found, Naruto says, and Gaara nods. Putting that aside, it's true, not even death can stop the most unpredictable ninja in Konoha. In fact, I thought you understood that, especially after I defeated you 10 years ago using Gamabunta to fight against Shukaku after you released him, he adds. How are you alive then? Tamari asks, with a trembling voice while looking at her brother's first real friend. It's a long story, Tamari, Naruto said with a little smile before looking back at Gaara. If you wish I'll tell you, he adds. Gaara slowly nods, but first points to Mitsuri, who has remained silent until then. Before that, I'd like to properly introduce you to my wife Mitsuri and my adopted son Shinki, he says, and both give the young family small bows. Naruto grabs a chair and parks himself with both hands on his cane. Like I said, this is going to be a long story. Mitsuri can take the boy home, he says, and Mitsuri agreeing, kissing Gaara and Shinki hugging him. Now we can begin, Naruto says, and for hours to come, told them about his life as Yunrikisai Shijikuni Yamamoto, the Soul Society, the Zanpakuto, the Hollow, Aizen and his betrayal, the Quincy's, the Soul King and all the rest, including the reason for his return, and by the end both were speechless. And that's my story, Naruto says. This is incredible, Gaara said with shocked eyes. I never thought anything like this could exist, he adds. We won't have any issues with the Soul King, Tamari says. You have nothing to fear, the Soul King's concern is the Otsutsuki, Naruto says. Though it would best to keep this between the four of us, Retsu says. Your secret is safe with us, Naruto. What are you going to do now, Gaara says. We'll head for Rain Country, then Iwa and Kumo to learn some more information to root out the Otsutsuki, Naruto says and rolls his neck. I also wish to ask, why is Suna reduced to such a state? As I recall, Suna and Konoha had an alliance, he adds, and Gaara grimaces. Yes, we were allies, but when we received word of your death or when I saw people celebrating despite not finding your body, those people were celebrating. Lady Tsune tried to corral things, but the council, Gaara explains, and a sad smile forms on Naruto's face. I'm sorry to hear that Suna is so reduced because of me, Naruto says. Don't blame yourself, my friend. Konoha showed their true colors for all their talk on unity and their will of fire, but truthfully they are not, Gaara says. I agree, now that we've spoken, Retsu and I will be on our way to Rain, Naruto says. You could stay, Tamari says. You all need to focus on recovering, we'll handle the Akatsuki and Otsutsuki, Naruto says. Take care of yourself, Naruto, Gaara says, and extends his hand with Naruto shaking it. Same to you, Gaara. Tamari, once my business is done we'll catch up properly, Naruto says and Gaara nods. Naruto and Retsu bid the pair goodbye, heading into the streets of Suna before disappearing in the crowd and the village. The captain, commander and first Kenpachi move through the land of wind and make stops to rest, but also for Retsu to buy or Naruto buy her some new clothes. She bought a white dress shirt along with a black jacket, having a silver butterfly pin on its left lapel. On the back there is a large spider-like pattern in the center, along with webs on both shoulders and a burgundy inside, wine-colored straps with golden accents on both her jacket, shorts, thighs and gloves. Is there a reason for such an outfit, Naruto says, as they were walking through a town near the border to River Country. I'll be honest, Naruto, I want us to be together, Retsu says, and Naruto freezes for a moment. Yes, I had a serious crush on you, and your death devastated me, but inspired me. Now that we've been revived here, I will not let this chance pass me by, she adds. Don't argue it, kid, you do need to get laid, Yusaka says, and Naruto sighs. We'll see how things play out, Naruto says, and Retsu smirks, but both Shinigami notice a presence before several people reveal themselves with bandages covering their bodies and robes while civilians run away, but the bandage people kill a few. Both captain draw their swords and use their superior speed to begin cutting down the bandage with Retsu, slicing some completely in half vertically, but ominous clapping echoes. You two have nice chakra, voice says, sounding laid back and jovial. Naruto looks up to see a man standing above them with grayish-blue unkempt short spiky hair and a ponytail, brown horns that grow from the back of his head and wrap around to his forehead, having a small gap in between them. Could he be one of the Otsutsuki or someone else, Retsu says. He wears a long-sleeved light-colored suit with a sectioned apron over it, along with a sash. Naruto says nothing and launches himself at the mystery man, forcing him to avoid Naruto's swings ignited in flames. Though quite fast for a human, and your chakra is something I will have, the mystery man says, and forms a red fishing pole of chakra. You may call me Urashiki, he adds, swinging his chakra pole, but Naruto avoids it with ease. Be definitely an Otsutsuki, his chakra feels similar to my creator Hagoromo Otsutsuki, Yusaka says, and Naruto picks up his speed, but also moving Urashiki from the town. Be skilled, Urashiki thought, but suddenly ducks under a swing from Retsu coming from behind. Urashiki is curious as both are hovering like him, but sees a trail of smoke as Retsu skids next to Naruto. Why not let me fight, Naruto, Retsu says. He's one of them, you have no reason to hold back, Naruto says, and Urashiki grins. Does the beautiful lady wish to fight me, Urashiki says. Thank you for the compliment, but it won't save you, Retsu says and vanishes as Naruto raises his sword. Reduce all creation to ash, Yusaka, Naruto declares, as flames ignite around him while he swings. Jinkaku Enjin, he adds. Urashiki narrows his eyes as he avoids Retsu's swings, but they are coming faster and faster, while an immense wall of flame surrounds them to form a huge contained sphere of flame. Now no one will disturb us, Retsu says, as Urashiki blocks her sword. Haha, I'm not one for foreplay, Urashiki says, avoiding her swings, but throws up his rod to block several hidden blade from her. I am, and you are ruining it for me, Retsu says, unleashing her Ryatsu, and Urashiki feels it. These two are wholly different than the usual monkeys. They may give Mama Shiki and them a run, Urashiki thought. Retsu raises her sword with this look on her face that promised death. Bankai Minazuki, she says, her tone completely changed as she cuts her hand alongside the edge of her blade. The blade of her sword liquefies into a thick viscous blood-like substance that engulfs the area up Naruto's flame barrier. Playtime is over, Otsutsuki, Retsu says and shoots forward, swinging, and Urashiki avoids, but he notices something immediately. Retsu's Bankai is as dangerous as mine, Naruto thought, but Yusaka scoffs, acid capable to stripping flesh from bone in minutes, even her own, he says. However, her mastery over healing allows her to heal instantly. Who knew the mouse could become a man-eater, Yusaka says. What is this woman? She's being melted by this acid and losing chakra to me, yet a smile never leaves her face, Urashiki thought, seeing the psychotic smile on her face, and she was healing him on top of it. Waves of acidic blood met each time he attempts to move back seconds, but it made no difference as Retsu moves faster and fought differently to confuse him. Urashiki skids along the blood as he devours the remains of Retsu's chakra, but it's not enough to over the beast of a woman before him. To think some human would force me to do this, Urashiki thought. However, suddenly Naruto appears in front of Urashiki with his fists clenched and coming forward, Sankatsu, Naruto utters, slamming his double fists. Urashiki doesn't have time to counter as his upper half completely obliterated and Retsu's Bankai destroys the rest. Things were getting fun, Naruto-kun, Retsu says, releasing her Bankai and sheathing her sword. You were dragging it out for your own amusement, Naruto says, as his flame barrier burns off. Perhaps, but I wanted work off some energy in this new body, Retsu says, and closes the gap between them, though in the past I would fight or drag Sato and Katori into my bedroom, she adds, dragging out bedroom seductively, and Naruto sighs. Number spicy content incoming, spicy content incoming, spicy content incoming number. I didn't think you'd give in to her demand, Yusaka says, as Naruto is on his back with Retsu riding him like a bucking bronco, and their clothes were scattered across their hotel room. It's been a long time for me as well, Naruto thought, gripping Retsu's butt as her G's flop up and down. You were always a prude, Yusaka says, giggling. Are you enjoying yourself, Naruto-kun, Retsu says, her voice heavy and husky. The sultry captain doesn't wait for an answer and lowers her head to grasp his face to capture his mouth in a sloppy kiss, forcing her tongue into his mouth but still gyrating her lower half. She releases his face as she feels her inner wall clamping down from another orgasm. I am enjoying myself, though it seems you are quite the nympho, Naruto says. Retsu grins and removes herself from him to lay on her stomach to engulf his member her mouth. Slowly she begins bobbing her head up and down. The real nympho, Yusaka comments, as Retsu takes in more of his shaft every time her head went down. Naruto groans a little as he sits up a little, but his hand goes to the back of head and pushes her gently, forcing her to take in more with each bob than before. Retsu gags as the tip hits the back of her throat, but she knows he is close to cooming once, and he does as several thick of ropes of coom fill her mouth. Naruto falls back down with a few heavy breaths, but knows what is coming as soon as his body feels energized. The 4th squad captain used her extensive knowledge of healing kidm to use by healing them too before they started having sex hours ago. Yes, I am a bit of a nympho, poor Isane often learned that, Retsu says, after swallowing his coom. I bet, Naruto says. More hours pass and the pair try various sexual positions like reverse cowgirl, doggy, the harp, full Nelson, 69 several ways, standing and finally in the shower covered in suds to name a few. Number spicy content finished, spicy content finished, spicy content FINISHED number. Naruto cuts a piece of steak and slips it into his mouth as Retsu sits across from him with her own, who became head captain, he says, and Retsu smirks. Shunsui, Retsu says, and Naruto nearly spits up his wine. Central 46 chose him, he was the best choice considering Jashiro's condition, she adds. Of course, Mimihagi, the right hand of the Soul King, Naruto says, after another sip of wine. What will you do, or rather what will we do after the Otsutsuki are dealt with, Retsu says. I lived for duty for all my life, perhaps now I or we can live free, Naruto says, and Retsu smiles. Yes, a modest home with 2 children, a boy and girl, Retsu says and raises her glass, to freedom and a future, she adds. The freedom and a future, Naruto says, as they clink their glasses. Several days later, Naruto and Retsu were closing in on the village of Omegakure as rain falls constantly. It lives up to its name, Retsu says, both wearing hooded and ankle-length cloaks. Indeed, Naruto says, looking to the dark sky. A large lake surrounds the village that high buildings of iron and steel with seems to be only one way inside being a bridge. Halt. One of the 5 guards, pointing his spear. We are simply travelers, can we not enter, Retsu says, showing her face under her hood. Are you shinobi, a second says, her eyes on Naruto. Youngsters these days, is this how you treat the elderly, Naruto says, showing his Yamamoto henge. We don't take kindly to outsiders, a third says. That may be the case, I would like to get my grandfather out of this weather, Retsu says. The first guard stares at the pair but lowers his spear. Follow us however you will guard it, he says. Tight security, but something seems off, Yusaka says. The rain is laden with chakra, the one doing this must have a monstrous pool of chakra. Does an Otsutsuki reside here, Naruto thought. In the highest tower of a megacore that has 4 humanoid faces at each side and is connected to 2 smaller towers. One face has Rinnegan-like eye patterns with a pipe and has piercings, having its tongue stuck out, and on it sits Father. Delta Angel, Father says, and a cloaked figure emerges from the shadows with a blue hair woman. What is it, leader, Delta says, a bit of agitation in her tone. She has long curly blonde hair and light purple eyes with yellow eyeshadow, having vertical lines running through her pupils and her eyes. She wears a black cloak with a pink inner lining, but underneath wears a turquoise outfit having an exposed heart-shaped cutout on her back, triangle-shaped cutout bishop sleeves, a triangle-shaped cutout on her chest, white wrist cuffs, pink triangle earrings, with black and red striped tights, and long white high-heeled shinobi sandals. There are 2 people who have entered the village, take Angel and kill them, their bodies will serve me, Father says, and Delta clucks her tongue. Who are they, Delta asks. They are perhaps the one who killed Sasori and Deidara, do not underestimate them, Father says. Fine, Delta says and vanishes with Shunshin, while Angel explodes into paper butterflies. Back with Naruto and Retsu, the pair were in building awaiting the village leader, so they were told, but Retsu activates her Byakugan to look over the village. We may actually be in the den of the enemy, Retsu says. Then we should prepare to defend ourselves, Naruto says, turning his cane into a sword. The former captains step out the building as their guards were gone, and it is no longer raining, from the east, Retsu says. Naruto looks east as a wave of floating paper arrives and shoots towards them, but both captains avoid it. Angel forms from the paper, but Naruto appears to slice her in half, however she is simply a paper clone, while Delta appears with spinning roundhouse. Naruto blocks with his forearm as the ground cracks from the force, not bad, Delta says, and avoids a swing from Retsu. Angel is above them with her lower body as paper to make wings to fly. Are you the ones who killed Deidara and Sasori, Angel says, using Father's voice. Any if we are, Retsu says. Then you will die, Delta says, and the battle begins. Music. Treachery dubstep Raiden REMIX loop. Naruto leaves Delta to Retsu as he faces off against Angel, but the people of AIM were not people, as they turned into strange humanoids that can meld with one another to form creatures. Turning innocent people into those things only an Otsutsuki would be so void of empathy, Yusaka says. Angel avoids a wave of flames, but slaps her hands together as spears of spears form her wings to fire towards the blonde. The way she is avoiding my swings is inhuman, is she like those creatures, Naruto thought, burning the paper with his Ryatsu. Angel slaps her hands together again, and a large puff of smoke erupts as large red crustacean appears while Naruto's eyes narrow. It has a number of black rods stuck through the top left side of its back and another in the lower right side of its back. Around its mouth and all of its underside is white, while the rest is a reddish color. It has 8 crab-like legs and 2 big crab-like pincers. It has many large spikes jutting out of its lower back area, most notable the very large spike in the center of its lower back. The summon, Naruto thought, avoiding it spreading a large volume of foam-like bubbles. Ho ho, it's trying to negate my flames, Yusaka says, as Naruto brings the intensity. He slices through the crustacean and it vanishes with a puff of smoke, but he has to avoid several black-orange centipedes with the same black rods, most notably is one through their heads as Naruto notices the Rinnegan eyes. Byakurai, Naruto says, firing a concentrated bolt of pale lightning through the centipedes. Naruto then points his index and middle fingers towards Angel, sigh he says, and her hands lock behind her back, Sajum Sabaku he adds, as a yellow thick rope wraps around her as well. She crashes to the ground as Naruto closes in with his sword on fire, but he stops as a presence reveals themself. Otsutsuki, Naruto says, looking up to the floating figure of Father. How do you know that name, Father says, slowly lowering themselves to Naruto's level. You don't need to know, Naruto says. The ground under Father's feet begins to crack as they release a disgusting amount of chakra, while a smile forms on Naruto's face. This one is stronger than Urashiki, he thought, releasing more of his Ryatsu with a rumble of thunder. Naruto shoots forward to pierce Father's chest, but only cuts into their cloak, Shinra Tensei, Father says, above. Naruto jerks as he is pushed down by some unknown force and digging several craters, but a burst of flames erupts, forcing Father to avoid them, and lands with skid. Naruto rises from the crater with his eyes on Father, and they are an amalgamation of man and woman. They are wearing a white dress shirt, a black tie, a purple suit vest and black slacks with black shoes. Why do you interfere with peace, father says. Peace you say is peace is turning the people of this village and those creatures is peacekeeping those lives from being reborn. No, you Otsutsuki are virus, and I am the cure, Naruto says. The monkey believes himself to be a cure, father says. Naruto ignites his sword and shoots forward with a swing, but father avoids it while their arm mechanizes to fire several missiles from their forearm. Naruto swings and they explode as the blonde races through the smoke into the charging form of a brown ox, having a number of black rods stuck on its head and legs. Naruto avoided as it crashes into a high building and shoots towards father while they fire another Shinra Tensei which the blonde avoids, sending a wave of flames, and father points their hands. Foolish monkey, father thought, preparing to use the pre-top path, but the flames were intense and they could absorb them. Father avoids the flames as Naruto appears on their periphery with a swing, forcing them to use their Asura path to create a third arm to catch the blade. Naruto grins and flames explode to send father flying to crash through a building, but they catch themselves. The former captain commander appears above and swings down as father back leap before the ground shatters for about 10 feet wide. Yasugami Kichiki, father declares, creating a barrage of chakra fists. Naruto avoids them as they fracture the ground with large shockwaves and closes in on father, but they use Yasugami Kichiki to form gauntlets around their arms to parry Naruto's fiery swings. Seems they are skilled with chakra, Yasaka says, as father avoids a swing from Naruto. Indeed, but simply means I need to go faster, Naruto thought, creating several duplicates with pure speed. Father uses Asura to give themselves 6 arms into another barrage of Yasugami Kichiki. High up rank, and Naruto says, forming a blue-white glowing rod of energy. He tosses it forward and it multiplies into 100 more rods, forcing father to avoid them, but if you find the mark. Father gnashes their teeth a little as a lowly monkey has caused them harm, Kuchius. Jed Masm, they declare, slapping their hands together. Music change. Zetsu theme, Naruto Shippuden. Naruto closes in on father, but a large arm bursts from the ground to slap him out of the air, while the upper body of a giant earthen-colored humanoid entity, with a mummified appearance and a number of spike-like protrusions on its back. It wears what seems like a blindfold, but 7 open eyes were piercing through as it roars across the village. Father lands on the shoulder of the humanoid as 3 arms meld with it. That must be the husk of the Jubi, Yasaka says. Interesting, then I should bring out heavier weaponry, Naruto thought, flaring his senior captain class Ryatsu. Despite the constant rain and high humidity, the air is on fire from Naruto's inferno-like Ryatsu. It is as if the very air is on fire. My throat is dry, how can a mere monkey have such power? Father thought, fully merging with the Jed Masm. The titan roars and begins to stomp forward, knock buildings as it does, and it fires bolts of chakra from the protrusions on its back. Naruto avoids the bolts and launches toward the titan, and it swings its right fist that violently disturbs the air as it does, but Naruto creates a wave of flames. Naruto runs along towards the head of the Jed Masm as its arm is scorched from the flames, but father has the titan emit phantom dragons from its mouth. Naruto leaps to avoid them and sends a wave of flames into its face, but manages to swat Naruto away with its left hand. Want to use your Bankai again, Yasaka says, after Naruto crashes into a building. No need, even though I want to, because this Otsutsuki may have killed Iro Senin, Naruto says, stepping out the building and walking on the air. The Jed Masm is making its way towards him amid the flames, and Naruto raises his sword with both hands. Tamatsu Jigoku, he says, swinging down in an arc. The Jed Masm take another step before it is spilled from right shoulder to left hip with a blazing inferno. Father detaches from the Jed Masm as the intense flames turn it to ashes. He split the Jed Masm and destroyed it, father thought, as its pieces crash with a large dust-up. Father doesn't have time to contemplate their rage as Naruto appears with his sword raised once again. Yasaka Hatatsum. Natajiri, Naruto says, swinging down. Father shifts slightly as they're split down the middle with wide eyes, and Naruto incinerates them with a Tamatsu swing before sheathing his sword. Song ends. Amid the destroyed Jed Masm, a feminine figure lays motionless amongst the destruction, her long white hair spread under her with short eyebrows and a light kimono. Zetsu rises from the ground next to the unconscious woman. Father is dead and the Jed Masm gone the white side. Things can be salvaged, the black side says, reaching for the woman. Urkijmwuma voice declares. Zetsu jerks as 6 yellow thin wide beams of light slam into its midsection and it struggles to move. Don't bother, the kid has pierced your soul, Naruto says, landing across from Zetsu. What have you done, the black side of Zetsu says. Killing you, Naruto says, and raises his left hand like a knife. Hey, and he adds, firing an oblong blast of purple energy that incinerates Zetsu from existence. Throughout AIM and various places around the continent, numerous white Zetsu clones shrivel up and die without their original. Thank you, a soft voice says, and Naruto looks down to see the woman's eyes open, being a pupil less white. Who are you, Naruto says, kneeling to one knee. Hey Kagaya Otsutsuki, the woman says, and Naruto's eyes narrow. Otsutsuki Naruto says, clicking Yasaka outer sheath. I'm not an Otsutsuki, more or less I'm the light aspect of Kagaya, father is the dark aspect and had control over my body, destroying the Jed Masm allowed me my freedom, but only for so long, Kagaya says. What do you mean, Naruto says. I'm not long for this world, but I can merge with someone connected to the Rinnegan, I can survive, Kagaya says, as Naruto looks down at her weak form. My mission is to destroy the Otsutsuki, however you soul says different, I will aid you, there is a woman called Angel, she has a connection to father, Naruto says, and lifts Kagaya up, before vanishing. Naruto and Kagaya arrive to where he left Angel as she lays motionless, lay me next her, Kagaya says, and Naruto does so. She places her hand on Angel's chest before her body slowly glows as Retsu arrives. Who is she, Retsu asks. Her name is Kagaya Otsutsuki, but not a typical one it seems, Naruto says. Kagaya's body begins to slowly fade as color returns to Angel, before the only thing that remains is her kimono. Angel begins to move as the Rinnegan pattern in her eyes fade to a normal amber, and the black rods absorb into her body before she sits up. Kagaya, Naruto says. You may either call me Kagaya or Conan, we have merged our broken souls, Angel says. Conan, Naruto asks. Yes, Conan was an ally of father's host Nagato Uzumaki he used in place of his paths of pain after killing Jiraiya, the gallant Angel says. I see, do you have any other information on the Otsutsuki, Naruto says, and Angel nods as rain begins to fall once again. Let's get out of the rain and you can reveal what you know, Retsu says. Ch3. Land of Earth border. Have you decided what to call yourself, Naruto asks. The three were sitting in hotel on the border of Earth country. I will call myself Conan, it seems more suited to this body, Angel or Conan says. Why are the Otsutsuki here, Retsu asks, getting to the heart of the matter quickly. Conan leans back in her chair and opens her right hand a few times. We are a parasitic species, we consume life energy and genetic material in order to continuously evolve, she says. Quite similar to hollows they consume to evolve as well, Retsu comments. Indeed, but unlike hollows that are cleansed to enter the cycle of rebirth, you create those white creatures chaining those unfortunate souls to this plane, Naruto says, a bit of anger in his tone. Yes, my dark aspect created the white Zetsu as an army to combat the other Otsutsuki, Conan says. Tell us more about the other Otsutsuki, we've encountered one called Urashiki and dealt with him, Retsu says, picking up a teacup to drink. Only 3 remain, Naruto adds. Conan picks up her own teacup for a few sips to wet her throat. There are Momoshiki and Kinshiki, the latter an ever-present and subservient warrior, the former is a sadist and believes himself superior, but was laid low by a Siki, she explains. A Siki, Naruto questions. Otsutsuki usually travel in pairs, a Siki was my partner, he is driven, pragmatic and remorseless, but all around arrogant, he has taken over the body of someone called Code, Conan replies. In terms of strength, where do you put a Siki and Momoshiki, Retsu asks. A Siki is stronger than me, and Momoshiki is weaker than a Siki, Conan replies. What of the other Akatsuki now that your dark aspect has fallen, will they continue their works, Naruto asks. This I do not know, but there one I believe needs to be dealt with, his name is Boro, he leads a cult that worships the Otsutsuki, but it is a front to garner more white Zetsu, he uses a plague to weaken the populace of various towns and indoctrinates them at their lowest point, Conan replies. Disgusting, both captains say, and Conan frowns, knowing her dark aspect has committed such horrors to innocent people. Where is Boro and his cult, Retsu asks. The cult is in the mountains of the land of snow and spring far west of Yukigakure, Conan says. Do you know its exact location, Naruto asks, and Conan nods. Then we must postpone our trip to Iwagakure, he adds. I agree, I will take Conan to get her some appropriate attire, you can handle our supplies, Retsu says, smiling. Naruto rises from his chair with a sigh and nod, she almost has you whipped, Yusaka says, as the blonde heads out their hotel room. He makes his way into town, but he is deep in thought about the remaining Otsutsuki, and this causing him to bump into someone, catching her hand before she falls on her butt. Watch where you're going, the woman says, and Naruto's breath hitches. Ino Yamanaka. Naruto says, seeing his fellow blonde. How do you know my name? Ino says, and her breath hitches as well, and Naruto. She says. No, Naruto says, curtly, and moves past the blonde, but his body freezes after 10 steps. But going shika now shintention no jutsu, Ino declares, and Naruto's head whips back. No, wait, Naruto says. Ino falls back into Choji's arms, but she snaps back awake, no way. She says. Naruto frees himself from Shikamaru's shadow with his eyes on his 3 former classmates, as Choji, Shikamaru and Ino stare at him with flickering eyes. Are you really Naruto? Choji says. It looks like him but different, Shikamaru says. Naruto looks around to see people beginning to stare, and he sighs, follow me, we'll talk in a more private place, he says. A few minutes later, Naruto and Team 10 were sitting in private booth in a cafe with a barrier to keep things quiet. Are you really Naruto? You went missing on that mission, Choji says. Naruto sits with his eyes closed and picks up his coffee cup to take a sip. That mission was a mistake from the start, he says. Is what I saw. Relay world of flames over 2 millennia of living, Ino says, rubbing her left arm. It was Ino Yamanaka, the Naruto you knew, died on that mission to retrieve Sasuke Uchiha, and I was reborn as Jinrikisai Shijakuni Yamamoto, Naruto says. But your body was never found, Choji says. This makes no sense, Shikamaru comments. Perhaps not, Shikamaru Nara, but I died and was reborn, then died once again to be reborn once again, Naruto says. But why, Ino says. Naruto takes another sip of coffee with a sigh. I have no reason to tell you we're in 2 different worlds now, he says. You've really changed, Shikamaru says. I'm not the same Naruto you all knew, and I'm sorry about that. However, I've lived over 2 millennia, commanded an army of thousands. I'm no longer the ever optimist, but instead I've become a stern and steadfast man, Naruto says, and drinks some more coffee, though I hope to regain some of the old me, he adds. Will you come back to Konoha, Ino asks, but Naruto shakes his head. It's no longer my home though. How are the others, Naruto says and sees them frown. Ino begins to explain about the last 10 years that he already knows. Sasuke is back in the village, Naruto says, faking his indignation. We felt the same, but since he aided the village against Danzo's coup, it was a lot of politics, Shikamaru says. Politics never change regardless. Learning of teammate Shizune and Tsunade's deaths is very disheartening. I'll say a prayer for them, Naruto says, and rises from the booth. Goodbye Team 10, I hope we meet again, he says, placing some money on the table. They will tell the Hokage about your resurrection, Yasaka says, as Naruto leaves the cafe. It won't matter in the end. The Otsutsuki is my only concern for now. Returning to Konoha was never an option, Naruto thought, heading to load up on supplies for the trip to Snow, but also direction to Earth Country train station. He returns to their hotel room about 2 hours later with Konan and Retsu already back. What do you think, Retsu says, showing off the Konan. The melded soul woman is wearing a tight black vest over a dark blue shirt with rolled up sleeves, both running on the short side to reveal a white one-piece garment, but also her waist at the sides. A pair of low-waist black pants with a white belt, also having further dark blue belts around her thighs, as well as one below her bosom that joins another one draping over her left breast, and a loose white tie. Your clothing aesthetics are most odd, Naruto says. You are one to talk, Retsu comments, moving her hand up and down his length. Naruto unseals their supplies to divide among the 3 of them. I ran in the Ino Shikacho, he says. Did you reveal yourself to them, Retsu asks. Ino used her jutsu on me. I had to explain myself, Naruto replies. This may complicate things. You believe one of the Otsutsuki resides there. Word may reach them, Retsu says, securing her and Konan's things. Then it simply leads them to us, Naruto says. The 3 leave their hotel room and head into Earth Country to find their train station, which takes a few hours, and they purchase 3 tickets to Snow Country. The train has sleeper cabins, and they purchase one for the journey, but notice they are being followed by someone. Is that not the woman you fought, Naruto asks, seating in a seat in the dining car with Konan to his left. Retsu raises her glass of water and looks through the reflection to see Delta sitting at another table. It is how cute, she says. Did you not kill her, Naruto says, but Retsu shakes her head. No, I found her interesting. She reminded me of Sato a little bit. Beside, I believe she can spice up our sex life, Retsu says, and Naruto nearly spits out his water. I even talked Konan into joining us as well, she adds. You are truly a nymphomaniac, Naruto says, as Konan remains stone-faced. Sex curbs my murderous impulses, Captain Commander, Retsu says and looks back, waving Delta over, and the girl immediately comes to sit with him with a bottle of wine. Delta, meet Naruto Uzumaki and Konan, otherwise known as Angel, Retsu says. I know that, but how is she up and walking? Leader made her some automaton, Delta says. That's none of your concern, Naruto says, and Delta shoots him a look, but he ignores her, going back to the earlier conversation. Are there any other Akatsuki members of note, he adds. It was Tobi, but he was killed by my darker aspect. He was the hidden leader behind Nagato, but once my darker aspect took over Nagato, he dealt with Tobi and learned he was the architect of the Kyuubi incident in Konoha, Konan says. Retsu sees the rigid posture of her blonde, but he relaxes. I see any others, he says. Konan takes a sip of water to clear her thought. Kisame Hashigaki, he is known as the tailless-tailed beast, she says. Where is he, Retsu asks. Land of water. The chaos of the Mizukage's death has returned the country to chaos, Delta says. An interesting choice of words, Usaka says, not bringing up Tobi's death. What will he do now that your leader is dead, Naruto says. The problems in Mizu will occupy him and give him autonomy, but with leader's death, I do not know how he'll act, Konan says. We'll cross that path after we deal with Boro and his cult, Naruto says. It takes about 3 days to reach Snow Country, and as the country has advanced since Naruto was here last. The former hyperactive shinobi debates on going to see the daimyo Koyuki Kazuhana, but decides against it. They do see a few cult members trying to entice people, but seeing their malnourished forms dissuade many. Naruto and Retsu pose as a daughter with her grandfather looking for an escape, which the cult is telling them that Mugen Tsukiyomi can bring them salvation and takes them to their temple with Konan and Delta following. Look similar to Aztec temples, Yasaka comments, as Naruto is in his Yamamoto guise. Seems so, Naruto thought. Retsu and Naruto sees cultist praying with many looking malnourished, but praying to some sort Otsutsuki effigy. Is Lord Boro here today, she asks. Oh yes, you'll be able to hear one of his sermons, one says. The cultist leads them inside to a large auditorium and many were eagerly waiting. He has yet to weaponize them, but instead uses to make setsu, Naruto thought. The auditorium is dark with lights focused in the center as a tall middle-aged man with a heavily built and well-muscled frame appears. He has short spiky white hair on the very top of his head, a trimmed mustache, a beard stretching along his jawline to his temple and violet eyes. He also sports a trio of thick-line tattoos running down his face in a similar shape to the Roman numeral 3. Is this Boro, Yasaka says. Boro wears a white robe with a high collar, a white coat over a blue shirt with a row of buttons on the right side, white pants with blue shinobi sandals and armbands with metal plates on the forearms. Boro begins a rousing speech on how Mugen Tsukiyomi can unite them in a dream they would never awaken from. Such words can touch the souls of the downtrodden, Retsu says. Indeed, and we've seen it before, Naruto says. Boro continues his sermon, and his followers are completely mesmerized by his words, but suddenly the doors of the auditorium are destroyed by Delta. Boro. Why continue to preach to this trash? She shouts. Because they are in need of salvation and our God will provide that with Mugen Tsukiyomi. Boro declares, but Delta gives this look. Even if your God is dead. Delta declares, and the air is sucked out the room by these 6 words. Lies. Boro shouts and other shouts of disbelief joining him. Naruto removes his cloak and Yamamoto guys to move to the steps leading down. She speaks the truth because I slayed your false god, he says, and hears shouts of heathen, devil, demon and the like, but Naruto silences them with a pulse of his Ryatsu. Or your words do bring hope those here, but they are built lies perpetuated by you and your false god, Naruto says, walking down each step. You lie. Lord Boro has saved us from sickness. A young woman shouts. She has blue long hair and violet eyes, wearing the robes of the cult. Speak the truth, Inori, this heathen knows not what he says, Boro says. A sickness created by you, Naruto says, now about 1.5 feet from Boro. Why is this man lying, Lord Boro, Inori says, confused. Because that is his MO, Delta says after appearing next to Naruto. He spreads his sickness to bring you all to the brink and swoops in to save you, she adds, raising her hands in quotes. Enough. Boro shouts, shooting forward and swinging a left. Naruto slices off Boro's fist and grabs the large man before the pair vanish as the blonde tosses Boro into a jagged rock when they appear far from the cultist base. What a horrible man you are, Boro says, getting to his feet and weaving one-handed signs as his missing hand regenerates. The horrible one is you, Boro, and for it you will die, Naruto says. Haha, it will be you. Boro shouts and slams his hands down. Imton. Rakusiha, he shouts. The ground begins to rumble underneath Naruto as the former captain avoids an explosion of corrosive liquid that is melting everything. Naruto lands on another rocky pillar but sees this dark mist settling around him and Boro laughs. It's too late for you now, my Kuroi Moya will eat away at your body, Boro says as Naruto raises his sword. Reduce all creation to ash, Yasaka. Naruto declares and explodes with flames, but a thunderous explosion erupts, causing Boro to laugh once again. Fool. Gunpowder was mixed in with my dark mist, Boro declares, but his breath hitches as Naruto appears unharmed and slashes his chest into a roundhouse kick. Boro crashes into a rock face with a large indentation and spiderweb crack. Why am I not healing? He says, after weaving signs to Bird. You may be able to regenerate at an accelerated rate, but Yasaka's flames are like flames of hell itself, Naruto says, walking toward Boro with flames wrapped around Yasaka. Unforgivable. 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 Boro roars as body begins to balloon and sprouting crab-like legs. All you've given me is a larger target, Naruto says, looking up at Boro's form. He swings down, but Naruto avoids it. Tamatsu Jigoku, Naruto utters, swinging and creating a flame large enough to engulf Boro. He screams in agony as the flame stripes away flesh from the bones and turns Boro into nothing but ashes as Naruto sheathes his sword. The blonde vanishes and returns to the cultist base but finds it in ruins with numerous cultists dead. Naruto sees Retsu holding Inori and laying her down as he sees her throat has been slit. She took her life, she says, looking at the blue-haired young woman. Others had explosive notes on their bodies with explosions going off in other places too, Delta says. Those that didn't are mentally broken as if they knew Boro has died, Konan says. Throughout the elemental nations bouts of mass suicide would happen, with each proclaiming Boro is waiting for them. Are you sure? No, the Rokudame Hokage Kakashi Haddock says. The Ino Shikacho were standing before their Hokage and giving the report of encountering Naruto. He's built up this fantasy that he lived for over 2,000 years and commanded something called the Gate 13. Ino says. Do you think his near death created this new life? Kakashi says, his thoughts drifting back to that day. He searched for a half day for Naruto's body but found no trace of him. Did he say where he was heading? Kakashi asks, but all three shake their heads. He asked how everyone was but other than he was like a completely different person, Choji says. Kakashi leans back in his chair and glances to the picture of the past Hokage. Then I have no choice. Technically Naruto is still a Konoha shinobi, meaning I can place him in the bingo book, he says, shocking the three. Are you sure, Lord Kakashi? Shikamaru says. Yes, Naruto has obligations, and even 10 years later he has to fulfill them. If he comes home and straightens things out, we can finally put that day behind us, Kakashi says, and dismisses the three. About 30 minutes later, Sasuke, Code, Ada and Demon were meeting underground after one of Sasuke's Na brought them Team 10's report. So the Dobe may actually be alive, Sasuke says. Wasn't he your teammate that you thought you killed? Demon says, smirking. I find it impossible for someone gravely injured to hide for 10 years, Ada says. I agree, he's the Kyuubi. Jinchuriki and Akatsuki would have scooped him up, same for Urashiki or Momoshiki. However, let's not take a chance. Demon Ada, take those 3 special claw rhymes and search for him. Don't come back until you do, Code says. Where do we even start searching? Ada says. Try Mizu, it's a hotbed of activity, Sasuke says. Ada dramatically sighs and rises from her chair as Demon follows her to a holding cell where 3 humanoid figures are sitting motionless. One is a female humanoid with a long, striped 4-pointed collar and a black studded hood resembling the appearance of a harlequin. A black studded bodysuit, a pair of Rinnegan eyes and pterodactyl feet, which are clad in black studded bands that resemble high-heel ankle boots. The other 2 are male humanoids with Rinnegan eyes, pterodactyl feet and both wearing oversized baggy black pants and a studded black arm guard on his left forearm of one and right forearm for the other. Mitsuri Hidari Migi, we are chasing your former boss, Ada says, her arms folded. Boss Hidari says, formerly Konohamaru Sarutobi. Boss Migi, formerly Uden Ice. Can we devour him? Mitsuri says, formerly Mogi Kazamitsuri, in a cruel and mocking tone. After we bring him back, Ada says, and the 3 nod, eager to see their former boss. Naruto stands on the deck of a ship heading for the main island of Mizu, the events of Snow weighing on his mind and the images of the dead in the back of his mind. He used a few earth jutsu to sink the cultist base and the cultists below the ground, leaving the country as soon possible. Those people were too far gone, nothing could have saved them. We can only hope they find new lives in the Soul Society, Asaka says. One can only hope if it remains, Naruto thought. Retsu comes up and wraps her arms around his left arm with her head on his shoulder. Do we have destination in mind? She asks. The main island of Fujioka. We will head to Kurigakure or simply listen to the people and they will guide us, Naruto says. They soon arrive on Fujikoka as a tension lingers in the air as this unease is shared by many, while the 4 split up for information. Or Delta follows Retsu with plans to meet at the harbor by sundown. Naruto has his hood up, but there were several times of mistaken identity as the day goes along. He looks nearly identical to you, sir, but he has these marking on his cheeks, a shop owner says, as the blonde browses his wares. What kind of markings? Naruto says, a dark thought entering his mind that Yasaka immediately notices. You don't think? Yasaka says. Like 6 whiskers? Yeah, 6 whiskers on his cheek, the shopkeeper says. If not for his very long life, Naruto would have exploded with rage and destroyed this island, but he maintains a stoic face. Where does he frequent? I must meet this doppelganger of mine, Naruto says. I believe he lives on Horai Island, the shopkeeper says, bringing a map and showing the blonde on a map. Naruto, Yasaka says, after the blonde leaves the shop. The blonde remains silent as he continues to gather information. Conan said Momoshiki was defeated by Isiki, but it would impossible for my body wouldn't be in his possession, Naruto thought. Then we need to head for Horai Island, Yasaka says, but her wielder stops in his tracks and looks south. On a boat off the coast of Fujioka, Ada relaxes her dojutsu known as the Senrigan in her left eye, with Demon lounging behind her. You found him? He asks. Yes, he's on the island, Ada says. Are we attacking? Mitsuri says. Not yet, Mizu may be in chaos right now, but that could be turned to Konoha. We'll follow them and attack on a less populated island, Ada comments. How strong is he? Demon says. He is like a sun, Ada comments, and Demon smiles. Back on Fujioka, Naruto and company meet with discussion of what they have found, but Naruto leaves out about his body. Kurigakure is under the control of our former aide of the Gaudium Mizukage mate Terumi. She was killed in a coup lead by those who wish to see the old ways restored, Retsu says, as they were sitting in a restaurant near the harbor in a private section. Meaning this Ao hired Sasori, Naruto says, looking to Conan. Possible memories of then are hazy, Conan says. What about Kisame? Naruto asks. He travels fighting whoever crosses him path, he's a battle junkie, Delta says. Will we head to Horai Island to seek out this doppelganger, Retsu says, picking up her teacup for a drink. We will, and then seek out Kisame Hoshigaki, Naruto says, and all of them nod. 2 weeks of island hopping put them on the island of Horai after having to buy a boat to even come here. The island is only several miles in diameter with virtually no towns, but one called Janaka. It's like everyone is a puppet, Delta comments, moving the town. Naruto and Retsu notice it, as well as the Janaka reminds them of a megacure. Could the people be creations or zombies, as a few people said, she says. A few told them that the people Janaka have become zombie-like the past several years and virtually one comes here. Naruto slows his speed as the others move past him, but before Retsu could ask him, his hand shoots up to block a cannon and the ground fracture under him. Retsu, Konan and Delta see a large man standing about 7.5 feet with pale skin with short spiky blue-grayish hair, a full beard and a long horn above his left eye. He wears a pale blue shirt having back cuffs and a high collar over another darker appendage with a gray sash wrapped around his waist. He also wears gray pants and black, flat shoes on his feet which are upturned at the toes. Not many come to this place, the man says, pushing his cannon down, but it doesn't budge. Kinshiki, Konan says, and Kinshiki looks her way but quickly has to avoid a geyser of flames. Kinshiki lands but quickly has to block a sword strike from Naruto with a pair of trenched knives as sparks erupt from the blows while the onlookers begin to attack the others like crazed zombies. Above the battle, a figure watches from above with pale blue eyes hidden by a transparent Hagoromo veil over his head. He wears a white Karajinu hunting robe, baggy pants, a pair of Tengu Jetta, and a single black glove on his left hand. It seems these pests have brought others with them, the figure thought. Kinshiki skids back as part of his horn has been sliced off by Naruto. You move well for your size, but it will not save you, Otsutsuki, Naruto says, a little fire dancing down Yasaka. Music. Boruto asked Momoshiki and Kinshiki. Do not utter our names so casually, Mongrel, a voice says, behind Naruto. The hooded blonde slowly turns, but his eyes widen in shock as he is staring at his identical self, save for the pale blue eyes and 6 whiskers on his cheek, even them looking the same age as well. Lord Momoshiki, I can handle him, Kinshiki says. Yusaka could feel Naruto's rage bubbling to the surface like a volcano as the blonde removes his hood. It's like looking at reflection in cracked mirror, he says, and Momoshiki simply smirks at the sight of Naruto's face. Are you this vessel's twin perchance, Momoshiki says, but has to avoid a slash of flames that destroys his veil. The body stealer appears in front of Naruto for a punt kick, but he blocks with his forearm. Interesting, I didn't think you mongrels could face us, Momoshiki says, but avoid another slash of flames. Kinshiki appears behind, but Naruto turns and connects with a Katsu to the gut, sending the large Otsutsuki flying away about a mile. Momoshiki appears above with axe kick, but Naruto blocks with his forearm as the ground spiderwebs under him about 10 feet. If you must know, that is my body you inhabit, Otsutsuki Yasaka. Naruto says and explodes with flames. Momoshiki tries to absorb the flames with his Rinnegan on his gloved hand, but they were too intense for him to do so. He then decides to taunt Naruto with the malicious grin of a predator. This vessel is yours, interesting, you will have to look upon your own face as I kill you, Momoshiki taunts. Shadows cover Naruto's face as he touches his coat and it vanishes, but 4 new arrivals decide to get involved. Wow, there are 2 of you, Demon says, with the 3 claw grimes behind him. More uninvited guests, Momoshiki says. Momoshiki, Otsutsuki Mitsuri says, licking her lips. Which is the boss? There are 2 of them, Migi says. I agree, they both look like the boss, Hidari says. It doesn't matter, they can both be Naruto, Uzumaki, Demon says, and gains a mischievous look on his face. You want to know who these 3 are? They're your little corporation, Mogi Yuden and Konohamaru, he adds, and Naruto's flames explode in intensity. Let me be perfectly honest, this is something many know when it comes to me, Naruto says, and his voice is calm. It takes much to raise my ire, he adds, and senses Retsu has taken the others off island before all his flames vanish. Music. Escape the Fate One for the money. Bankai Zanka no Tachi, Naruto says. Demon has no time to activate his ability as the intense heat hits him and he crashes to the ground to never rise again. Momoshiki feels his cracked lips and the misty landscape has vanished. All those flames have vanished, he thought, but still smiles with his cracked smile. Mitsuri, Migi and Hidari stare at Demon's body, but then to Naruto with curious eyes. Boss, will you let us eat you? Mitsuri says, smiling evilly. Yes boss, let us eat you for not saving us, Hidari says. Interesting, Naruto Uzumaki, I'll need proper power to face you, Momoshiki says, but Naruto ignores him as the 3 claw grime leap at the original Naruto. Myogi Yuden Konohamaru, I'm sorry, Naruto says and swings, but the moment the tip of his sword's tip touches Mitsuri's side. She, Hidari and Migi were eradicated to nothingness that creates a large fissure by use of Zanka no Tachi, Higashi. Kayaki Jitsujin. He turns his attention back to Momoshiki as he is eating a strange fruit. "You killed them with no regard for them," Momoshiki says, as he explodes with power. His form changes and becomes lithe but covered with radiating black markings that resemble sunburst patterns. Horns emerge from his head and curve back, his hands gain short claws on his fingers and toes, his canines extend and resemble fangs, and all his eyes turn golden, including a third rinnegan on his forehead. Those were no longer Myogi Uten and Konohamaru, but corrupted entities. They will have better life in the next one, Naruto says, and shoots forward with downward swing, but Momoshiki avoids him, as another large fissure erupts. Momoshiki creates a staff of chakra to block Naruto's strike, but each destroys the area, Shinra Tensei Momoshiki says, blowing Naruto back dozens of feet, and the Otsutsuki appears above for a double stomp. "You are indeed strong, mongrel, but it was foolish to defy a god," Momoshiki says, stomping on Naruto's chest with grin, but does it several more times as several craters form. "It was you who foolish enough to steal my body," Naruto says, punching Momoshiki's leg and exploding the other side with a shower of blood that turns to red steam. Momoshiki back with a skid as Naruto up with flames now engulfing his sword to the shoulder, "Zanka no Tachi Nishi. Zanjutsu Gakui," Naruto utters. Momoshiki looks to his leg as red steam continues to leak from his body. "Red steam?" he says. "Your blood is evaporating. The intensity of Zanka no Tachi is like standing in front of the sun," Naruto says, his steps beginning to melt the ground under him. "Impossible. The sun is well upwards of 15 million degrees," Momoshiki shouts. "Indeed you are intelligent, Otsutsuki. How many worlds were snuffed out because of it?" Naruto says, raising his sword but gripping it two hands. He appears above Momoshiki with his sword coming down, "Zanka no Tachi Kita. Tenchi Kajin," Naruto says, slashes Momoshiki from crown of his head to his groin with an enormous wave of fire that obliterates him and section of the island to the ocean. Song ends. Naruto cancels his Bankai and with the loss of such intense heat, the heaven violent weep and masks the tears running down his face. He slowly sheathes Yasaka as his hand trembles. "You didn't yourself, you killed the bastard wearing your face," Yasaka says. "It still doesn't make it any easier," Naruto says, looking at the destroyed section of island. He lingers for a few more moments and vanishes with Shunpo to find Retsu, Konan and Delta, but finds them on a 40 yacht with Ada. "Geez, I know not to fight, we could feel the heat from here," Delta says. He was no mood and heads below deck as Retsu looks to Ada. "Take us from here," Retsu says. "Yes, One-sama," Ada says. Retsu finds Naruto sitting on a bed with head in his hands. "Naruto," she says. "It was me," Naruto whispers, confusing Retsu. She sits next to him and rubs circles in his back. "Retsu, it was me. The Otsutsuki had my body," Naruto says, and Retsu's immediately goes to her mouth with sharp intake of breath. She quickly pulls Naruto in her chest and embraces him tightly as his body trembles. Never had she seen Naruto break down in this way. About 30 minutes Naruto pulls back from and has composed himself enough to deal with the problem above deck. "Who is the new girl?" Naruto says. "Ada, she works for Isiki. She brought someone called Demon with Mitsuri Migi and Hidari." Retsu starts, and Naruto sighs. "Those last three were the Konohamaru Corporation. I ended their suffering," Naruto says, not caring about Demon. "How cruel," Retsu whispers. "What about this Ada?" Naruto says. "She attempted to enchant me like Delta, but failed, and it was reflected back to her due of overwhelming Ryatsu. Somehow she has become enchanted me and calls me One-sama," Retsu explains. Naruto lifts his head with another sigh. "You've collected another. Regardless, there is one Otsutsuki left, and Ada will lead us to him," he says. "Then we can put this behind us. We can settle in Spring Country. The five of us can find a nice place to live, perhaps even invite Lady Koyuki to join us," Retsu says, and Naruto drops his head into his hands with another sigh. Ch4. Land of Fire. Naruto and companions find themselves in a modest hotel room in the Land of Fire, having traveled swiftly from Mizu to the coast. The room is simple but clean with pale yellow walls and basic furniture. A window shows the bustling streets of the town with the sounds of village life filtering in through the glass. Naruto sits in a worn leather chair near the window, his posture straight and commanding, while his fingers drum lightly on the armrest. Naruto slowly in his chair, the leather creaking softly beneath him with his gaze settling on Ada as she sits calmly on the edge of one of the beds. "Ada, I need to know who sent you to find me," Naruto said, his voice calm but laced with an undercurrent of steel. Ada's cool and indifferent gaze meets Naruto's for a moment before flicking to Retsu. Her expression softens almost imperceptibly as she seeks reassurance from the older woman. Retsu is sitting in a chair near the door but gives a subtle nod, her expression encouraging but serious. Ada takes a deep breath as her fingers fidget with the hem of her shirt and is the only outward sign of her discomfort. It was Kotor Isiki Otsutsuki," she begins, her voice low and controlled. "I see," Naruto says, his eyes narrowing at the mention of the man who committed the sin of harming the Konohamaru Corporation and turned them into those things. Ada's eyes dart to Retsu again, and a hint of warmth creeping into her otherwise cold demeanor. He wanted information about your abilities and your plans, she says, her eyes sparkling slight at the sight of Retsu. Naruto nods slowly while processing this information, as Ada can be a valuable asset in their fight against the last Otsutsuki. There's something else. The Rakudame Hokage Kakashi Haddock is looking for you too, Ada says after a moment. Kakashi is Naruto says, more to himself than the others. Your encounter with Team 10, Ada says with a nod, her tone remaining cool and detached. As Naruto leans back in his chair with his brow furrowed in thought. Ada finds herself studying him intently, as she is used to people being captivated by her presence, yet Naruto seems completely unaffected. Her gaze flicks to Delta and Conan, who were sitting in the corner of the room, their eyes fixed on hers with a mix of admiration and awe. Ada feels a twinge of confusion, unable to comprehend why she didn't have the same effect on him. You expected this after revealing yourself to the Inoshikacho. Perhaps we do need to return to Konoha not only to confront Code, but also the Hokage, Asaka says within Naruto's consciousness. You might be right, Naruto mutters under his breath, drawing curious looks from both Ada and Delta. He turns back to face them. It seems our path is leading us back to Konoha. We'll need to tread carefully, Naruto muses, his voice steady and authoritative despite the turmoil of emotions beneath the surface. If we're heading to Konoha, I'm hoping to see Hanabi and see how much she's grown, Retsu says, her eyes softening with a hint of nostalgia and her voice gentle but firm. Ada's eyes widen slightly at Retsu's words, a flicker of emotion breaking through her cool exterior. The idea of her One-Sama reconnecting with family seems to stir something within her, though she quickly masks it behind her usual indifference. Ada, how did Mama Shiki gain control of my original body, Naruto asks, his voice calm but insistent. Ada shifts comfortably on the bed while crossing her long legs and bouncing her foot. She takes a deep breath before speaking. Mama Shiki challenged Code for dominance in Isaki's dimension. He arrogantly believed himself more powerful when Isaki moved to Code's body, she explains, her eyes darting between Naruto and Retsu. Naruto's eyebrows furrow with his mind racing with the implications of this information. Go on, he urges gently. From what Code told me, he had Mama Shiki was on the verge of defeat, but then Kinshiki involved himself in the fight. Both Mama Shiki and Kinshiki fled after that. I can only assume they found your body after fleeing, Ada continues, her voice calm and cool. The room falls silent as Naruto's left fist clenches at his side and his jaw tightening while remembering fighting himself, his reflection in a cracked mirror. The air around him seems to crackle with an unseen energy, reminiscent of the immense spiritual pressure he exudes. Ada watches Naruto intently, a mixture of confusion and fascination in her eyes. Ada, come sit in my lap, Retsu said softly and suddenly, patting her thighs invitingly. Ada hesitates for a moment but quickly moves to settle onto the older woman's lap and feeling a sense of security wash over her. Retsu wraps her arms around Ada's waist, her touch gentle and reassuring. She begins to rub Ada's thigh soothingly and feeling the tension slowly leave the younger woman's body. There now, I know he can be scary, but he's very loving, Retsu murmurs, her voice low and comforting. Ada leans slightly into Retsu with her beautiful eyes meeting Retsu's ocean blue gaze, and there is a warmth in those eyes that makes Ada feel understood but also accepted. Ada, can you tell us where Code is hiding in Konoha, Retsu said gently, her hand still rubbing Ada's thigh. Ada's gaze remains locked with Retsu's as she replies, he and Sasuke are using the old route headquarters as their base underneath Konoha. Sasuke heads the group, she said, her voice soft but clear, and Naruto's eyes narrow at this information. That's valuable information, Ada, thank you for sharing it with us, Naruto said, his voice carrying the weight of his years as Captain Commander. Ada nods with a hint of pride flickering in her eyes at Naruto's approval, and she feels Retsu give her thigh a gentle squeeze. Yes, you've done well, Ada, I think you deserve a reward for your honesty, Retsu purrs, her voice taking on a sultry tone that made Ada's cheeks flush. Naruto's expression remains impassive as he looks to Retsu while raising an eyebrow. You are indeed a nympho, aren't you, he said, his voice tinged with a mixture of amusement and exasperation. Rising to his feet and Naruto reaches for his Zanpakuto cane. Where are you going, Naruto? Conan asks, her voice laced with curiosity. Naruto glances at her and his blue eyes twinkling with a hint of mischief. Just for a little walk, Retsu seems to have her fun planned out, he replies casually, grabbing his coat and slipping it on. Scared to sleep with 4 women, Delta comments, her voice playful but with an underlying edge of challenge. No, but I think I'll leave you all to it, Naruto replies simply with a scoff. As he moves towards the door, his mind is already racing with plans and strategies. The information Ada has provided about Code and Sasuke makes their next move tricky. The warm afternoon sun beats down on the bustling streets of the small town as Naruto steps out of the hotel. The air is thick with the scent of street food and the chatter of locals going about their day. Naruto's grip tightens on his cane, its fox-headed design drawing curious glances from passers-by. He begins his walk with his steps were purposeful and measured, a stark contrast to the carefree strides of the villagers around him. Merchants call out their wares from colorful stalls lining the streets, children laugh as they chase each other through the crowds, and the distant sound of hammering from a nearby construction site fills the air. "You know you should have stayed back there and relieved some stress," Usaka says, a hint of amusement coloring her words. "Maybe, but I needed to process things," Naruto replies internally with a chuckle and shaking his head. His thoughts turn how to challenge Code without causing widespread destruction due to the power of his Bankai. "We need to plan something to lure Code out without endangering innocent lives," Naruto muses, his fingers tapping thoughtfully against the fox-headed cane. Naruto's gaze falls on a small but unassuming tea shop tucked away in a quiet corner of the street as he ponders this dilemma. The faded sign above the door reads Fire Whisper, and something about its quaint appearance stirs some memories. Deciding that a cup of tea might help clear his mind, and he makes his way towards the shop. The bell above the door chimes softly as he enters, the aroma of various teas filling his nostrils. An elderly woman looks up from behind the counter, and her eyes widening slightly as she takes in Naruto's appearance. "Welcome, young man, what can I get for you today?" she said, her voice warm and slightly raspy. "A cup of green tea please," Naruto replies, settling onto a stool at the counter and offering a small smile. The woman busies herself preparing the tea, and Naruto's mind continues to work on the problem at hand. The steaming cup of tea is soon placed before him, interrupting his thoughts. Naruto nods his thanks, wrapping his hands around the warm ceramic and takes a sip, letting the familiar taste wash over him. Meanwhile, and deep beneath the bustling streets of Konoha, in the chambers of the old NA headquarters, Code stands by a large window overlooking an underground training area as several NA train. He swirls a glass of deep red wine, and the liquid catches the faint light as he moves. Sasuke leans against a nearby wall with his arms crossed over his chest, his mismatched eyes fixed on Code. The tension between them is a little palpable, a silent battle of wills that has been ongoing since their uneasy alliance began. Code takes a long sip of his wine before speaking as his voice is low and tinged with frustration. "My 3 clog rhymes are dead, and most likely Ada and Demon as well," he said, his eyes narrowing as he stares into the depths of his glass. Sasuke's expression remains impassive, but a flicker of interest passes through his eyes. "How can you be sure?" he asks, his voice calm and measured. Code turns to face Sasuke and his lips curling into a bitter smile. "I can feel it, the connection, it's gone, something or someone has taken them out," he replies, tapping his temple with his free hand. "Could it be him?" Sasuke says, pushing off the wall and taking a few steps closer to Code. His mismatched eyes holding a mixture of curiosity and caution. Code's grip on his wine glass tightening and his knuckles turning white. "Possibly, if it is, then our plans may need to change," he admits, his voice laced with a mixture of anger and excitement. Sasuke's brow furrows as he processes this information. "Naruto, if he's truly alive and has the power to take out 3 clog rhymes," he said, the name rolling off his tongue with a hint of disbelief. Code nods grimly and sets his wine glass down on a nearby table with a soft clink. "It's not just that he's alive. If he's gained enough power to eliminate my clog rhyme so easily, then we're dealing with a threat far greater than we anticipated," Code said, his voice low and intense. "We need more information. If Naruto has indeed returned with such power, we can't afford to underestimate him," Sasuke said, his tactical mind already working on solutions. Code turns back to the window with his reflection staring back at him from the glass. "You're right, but with Ada gone our intelligence network has taken a significant hit," he agrees, his voice tight with frustration. Sasuke moves to stand beside Code and both men gazing out at the underground training area. "We may need to accelerate our plans, try to draw him out," Sasuke suggests, his voice calm but tinged with urgency. Code nods slowly with a sinister smile spreading across his face. "Yes, if Naruto wants a fight we'll give him one, but on our terms and in a place of our choosing," he said, his eyes gleaming with malice. "There's something else. Kakashi plans to put Naruto in the bingo book," Sasuke says, a calculating look crossing his features. "Oh, that's an interesting development," Code says, his eyebrows raising and his interest peaked. "Indeed, and no country will be truly safe for him anymore, not even a backwater like Suna would offer protection. He'll be a marked man and hunted by every nation," Sasuke says, a slight smirk on his face. A slow but cruel smile spread across Code's face as he processes this information. "This could work in our favor. Have your operatives prepared to search for him," he says, his voice tinged with satisfaction. Sasuke nods with his mind already working on the logistics. "Where should we start?" he asks, his tactical mind seeking the most efficient approach. Code's eyes glint with a mixture of anticipation and malice. "Start with Mizu, that's where Ada was last headed. It's as good a place as any to begin our hunt," he said decisively, and picks up his wine. "Do you think he suspects about the bingo book?" Sasuke says, his voice carrying a hint of curiosity. "Highly unlikely, but either way works to our advantage. If he is somehow aware, he'll be on edge and more than likely to make mistakes. If he's not, well, the surprise will be that much sweeter when he realizes he has nowhere to hide," Code says, his expression nonchalant but his eyes sharp. Sasuke nods with a flicker of something unreadable passing through his eyes, and for a brief moment, a memory of his old teammate flashes through his mind, but he quickly pushes it aside. "I'll set the in motion immediately, we'll start combing through Mizu leaving no stone unturned," Sasuke said, his voice firm and resolute. Code raises his wine glass in a mock toast, and his eyes gleaming, "To the hunt, then may it be swift and merciless," he said, his voice low and dangerous. The scene shifts to the heart of Konoha, and inside the council chamber, a tense atmosphere hangs in the air as Kakashi sits amongst the assembled clan heads, their heirs, the Anbu commander and the elders Koharu and Homura. The room is filled with hushed whispers and concerned glances as Kakashi clears his throat, his visible eye scanning the faces before him. The gravity of the situation is palpable, reflecting in the furrowed brows and tight-lipped expressions of those present. "As you all know, Team 10 reported an encounter with Naruto Uzumaki near the border of Earth Country. I have waited to get a detailed information," Kakashi begins, his voice steady but tinged with urgency. "I still don't believe it. Naruto died 10 years ago in the Valley of the End," Tsume says, her voice a mix of anger and remembrance. "I understand your anger, Tsume, but the reports from Team 10 and a few witnesses are clear and consistent," Kakashi says, steepling his fingers on the table. "Yes, and as in our report Naruto constructed an elaborate fantasy," Shikamaru says, his sharp eyes focused on Kakashi as Ino sits beside her teammates. "It's not just a fantasy, he wholeheartedly believes that he's lived another life as someone called Jinrikisai Shijikuni," Yamamoto Ino adds, her voice filled with worry. "It's not just his beliefs that have changed, his entire personality is different, it is like he's a completely different person wearing Naruto's face," Choji says, his voice low but clear. The room falls silent as the implications of Choji's words sinks in. Ino nods in agreement with her blue eyes scanning the faces of those around her. "Choji's right, the way he speaks, the way he carries himself. It's nothing like the Naruto we grew up with, it's as if he's lived an entire lifetime since we last saw him," she adds softly, her eyes flickering. "This situation is unprecedented. I would prefer to leave Naruto alone, but we must consider our responsibilities. He is our Jinchuriki and technically still our ninja," Kakashi says, his voice grave and his visible eye scanning the room while taking in the faces of the council members. A heavy silence falls over the room as the weight of Kakashi's words sank in. The clan heads exchange uneasy glances, while the Anbu commander shifts slightly with his mask hiding any reaction. "Given these circumstances, I believe we have no choice but to place him in the bingo book," Kakashi says after taking a deep breath. A ripple of murmurs sweeps through the chamber, with some nodding in agreement while others look troubled by the decision. Shikamaru's brow furrows deeply with his mind already racing through the potential consequences of such an action. Koharu's voice suddenly cut through the whispers in a sharp tone and tinged with bitterness. "If the boy had been here, he could have stopped Danzo's uprising. That disaster cost us several promising ninja and the god-aimed Tsunade herself," she said, her wrinkled face set in a grim expression. Her words hang heavy in the air and stirring painful memories, the weight of past losses pressing down on everyone present. "We can't change the past, our focus now must be on how to handle this situation moving forward. Placing Naruto in the bingo book is not a decision I make lightly, but it's necessary for the safety and stability of our village," Kakashi says, his shoulders sagging slightly under the weight of Koharu's accusation. Hiashi slowly clears his throat with his pale eyes, scanning the faces of those present, and behind him is Hanabi, her face a mask of composure despite the gravity of the situation. The loss of Hinata during Danzo's uprising still weighs heavily on both of them, a pain mirrored in the eyes of Tsume and Shibi Abiram. "Okage-sama, if and when you place Naruto in the bingo book, where do you propose we start looking for him?" Hiashi begins, his voice steady but tinged with a hint of urgency. "That's a valid question, Hiashi. Given Team 10's report, our initial search would likely focus on the border regions near Earth Country," Kakashi says, his visible eye creasing in thought. "Okage-sama, what about Tsunagakure? Naruto and the Kazekage were close friends, wouldn't that be a logical place for him to seek refuge?" Hanabi asks, before Kakashi could continue. A murmur of agreement ripples through the room as Kakashi nods thoughtfully and acknowledging Hanabi's point. "That's a perceptive observation, Hanabi. However, our alliance with Suna is tentative at best. We need to tread carefully," he said, and his tone softening slightly. "That being said, I will send a letter to Gaara, asking him to be on the lookout for Naruto. It's a delicate situation, and we need to handle it with diplomacy," he adds, his gaze sweeping across the room before continuing. "And what about our own forces, Hokage-sama? How do you propose we proceed?" Shikamaru asks, his eyes sharp with interest. "I'll be sending missives to both the Hunter Nin Corps and Anbu instructing them to be prepared for a potential search and retrieval mission," Kakashi says, and his next words carefully measured. "For now I'm labeling Naruto as an A-class target to be brought in alive," he adds, his voice taking on a more authoritative tone. The room erupts into a flurry of whispers at this declaration, and Ino gasps softly, while Choji's brow furrows with concern, while Shikamaru's eyes narrow in thought. "A-class? Isn't it a bit excessive for someone who was once our comrade? Tsume growls, her sharp canines gleaming. Kakashi holds up a hand and silencing the room once more. I understand your concerns, but we must consider the potential threat Naruto poses, especially given his altered state of mind. This classification ensures that our forces will approach the situation with the necessary caution, he said, his voice firm but not unkind. The council members continue to discuss the implications of Kakashi's decision, but outside the sun is setting over Konoha, casting long shadows across the village. The scene shifts back to the small town where Naruto and his companions have taken refuge. The sun has long since set, painting the sky in hues of deep purple and indigo. Naruto walks along the quiet streets, his fox-headed cane tapping softly against the street. The evening air is cool and crisp, but carrying the faint scent of blooming night flowers. After his initial walk and cup of tea as Naruto finds himself restless, his mind churning with plans and possibilities. He wanders through the town, stopping at a small ramen stand for a quick meal, and 2 more walks around the town follow, each step helping to clear his mind and solidify his resolve. The quiet streets and twinkling stars above provide a stark contrast to the turmoil that awaits them in Konoha. Time to head back, Naruto muses, arriving back to the hotel. He opens the door, and the room is dimly lit and the soft glow of a bedside lamp casting long shadows across the walls. The air is indeed heavy with the musky scent of sex, mingling with the faint aroma of floral perfume. Naruto's eyes immediately fall on the large bed where Konan, Delta and Ada lay entangled in a peaceful slumber. Their faces were relaxed and content smiles playing on their lips as they dream. The bathroom door opens with a soft click as Retsu emerge, wrapped in nothing but a fluffy white robe, her long dark hair damp and clinging to her shoulders. Steam billows out behind her, carrying the fresh scent of soap and shampoo. "Welcome back, I hope your walk was enlightening," Retsu said softly, a knowing smile curving her lips and her voice low, so as not to wake the others. Naruto nods with his expression a mixture of amusement and resignation. "It was I see you all kept yourselves occupied in my absence," he replies, his voice equally quiet. Retsu chuckles softly and running a hand through her damp hair. "We found ways to pass the time, though I must say Ada was quite disappointed you didn't join us. It seems your immunity to her charms has piqued her interest," she said, her eyes twinkling with mischief. Naruto raises an eyebrow and glances at the sleeping Ada. "Is that so? Well, we have more important matters to focus on right now," he muses, a hint of his old playfulness creeping into his voice. "Indeed we do. Did you come to any decisions during your walks?" Retsu asks, her expression growing more serious. "I did. We're going to Konoha," Naruto says, moving further into the room and taking a seat. "Konoha, are you sure that's wise? We run the risk of confronting Code and Sasuke there," Retsu says, her eyes widening slightly with a mixture of surprise and concern flashing across her face. "I know, but Ada mentioned Isaki's dimension. If I can force Code to take us there, I can fight with my full power, without risking collateral damage to the village," Naruto says, his voice steady and calm. Retsu considers this for a moment with her brow furrowing in thought. "It's a risky plan, but I can see the logic in it in Isaki's dimension, and you wouldn't have to hold back," she said slowly, her eyes searching Naruto's face. "Exactly, I can unleash my full Bankai there without fear of destroying everything around us. It's our best chance at ending this threat once and for all," Naruto says, his lips curving into a grim smile and rising back to his feet. Retsu nods and reaches out to place a hand on Naruto's arm. "I understand. When do we leave?" she says with her touch being gentle and comforting. "At first light we'll need to move quickly and carefully," Naruto replies, his voice filled with quiet resolve. Retsu nods as her eyes twinkle with a mixture of understanding and mischief. "Indeed," she purrs, her hands moving to the sash of her robe, and with a fluid motion. She unties it and allows the fluffy white fabric to fall open, revealing her nude form beneath. "I'm all clean now, perhaps we could dirty me up again," Retsu coos, her voice low and sultry, while taking a step closer to Naruto. He sighs with a hint of exasperation in his voice, but his eyes betray a flicker of amusement. "You are indeed a nympho, Hinata. Your old self would be shocked," Naruto said, shaking his head slightly. "Indeed she would have passed out," Retsu says softly, wrapping her arms around Naruto's neck. Her body presses against while being warm and inviting, her breath hot against his ear, and Delta stirs in the bed. "Are we going again?" Delta mumbles, her voice thick with sleep but tinged with interest. Retsu giggles and turns her head to look at Delta. "Yes, and this time Naruto will join us," she replies, her voice filled with playful anticipation. Naruto raises an eyebrow while looking from Retsu to Delta and then to the still sleeping forms of Ada and Konan. He knows he should be focused on their upcoming mission, on the dangers that lay ahead in Konoha. But as Retsu's fingers play with the hair at the nape of his neck, as Delta's gaze grows more alert and hungry, feeling a familiar warmth building within him. "Well, I suppose we do have a few hours, but remember we leave at dawn, no exceptions," Naruto said, his voice low and husky as his hands moved to Retsu's waist to pull her closer. Retsu's smile widens as she leans in and her lips brushing against Naruto's. "Of course, Captain Commander," she whispers teasingly, before capturing his mouth in a deep but passionate kiss. They continue to kiss as Delta moves closer in a fluid and predatory motion, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. The room that was once quiet and still begins to fill with the soft sounds of pleasure, a stark contrast to the challenges that await them in the coming dawn. A few days later and under the warm midday sun are Izumo and Kotetsu in their usual posts at the main gate of Konoha. The air was heavy with the scent of summer, a gentle breeze rustling the leaves of nearby trees. The two Chunin wear expressions of boredom, their eyes lazily scanning the quiet road leading into the village. Izumo lets out a long sigh and stretching his arms above his head, "You know, I still can't wrap my head around it, to think Naruto has been alive all this time," he said, breaking the comfortable silence between them. "Yeah, it's hard to believe. I remember the day we heard he may have died, the whole village was actually happy, and now," Kotetsu says with his eyes fixed on the horizon, his voice a mixture of awe and concern. "Now he's out there somewhere alive, but different from what we've heard," Izumo finishes, his gaze following Kotetsu's. A group of merchants pass through the gate and their carts laden with goods. Izumo and Kotetsu go through the motions of checking their papers, their minds clearly elsewhere. "Do you think he'll come back?" Kotetsu asks, his voice low after the merchants moved inside the village. "I don't know, but if he does I hope it's as a friend and not well, you know," Izumo admits, a hint of sadness in his eyes. The two fall silent again with the weight of the situation hanging heavily between them. "Hey Izumo, look there," Kotetsu says, suddenly with his low but urgent. Izumo follows his partner's gaze and spots 5 figures approaching in the distance, but as they draw closer, could make out that one is a man, and flanked by 4 women. "Travelers?" Izumo asks, straightening up. "Yeah, but there's something different about them," Kotetsu says, but there is something in his expression that spoke of more than just routine curiosity. The group come into clearer view, but both Chunin find their eyes drawn to one of the women in particular. She moves with a grace that seems almost otherworldly, her presence commanding attention without effort. Izumo feels a strange sensation wash over him with a mix of admiration and awe that he couldn't quite explain. "Do you feel that?" he asks Kotetsu, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's like I don't know, it is like I want to bow or something," Kotetsu says with a nod, his eyes wide. Should we alert someone?" Izumo asks, his hand hovering near the communication device. "No, not yet, let's see who they are first, but be ready for anything," Kotetsu says while shaking his head, seemingly unable to look away from the approaching group. As the group near the gate and the two Chunin straighten, trying to maintain their professional composure despite the strange mix of emotions coursing through them. The man at the center of the group comes to a halt just before the gate, his presence commanding attention. He rests one hand on a peculiar cane topped with a fox's head, its craftsmanship unlike anything Izumo or Kotetsu have seen before. The man's free hand reaches up and slowly pulls back his hood, but as his face is revealed, both Chunin feel their breath catch in their throats. "Tell the Rakudame Naruto Uzumaki has returned," Naruto said, his tone carrying a weight of authority that seems to reverberate through the air. Izumo and Kotetsu exchange shocked glances, their earlier feelings of awe now mixed with disbelief and a hint of fear. "Then Naruto? Is it really you?" Kotetsu says, the first finding his voice with his eyes wide. "Yes, it's me," Naruto replies, his voice steady and reassuring with his blue eyes holding a depth that speaks of years of experience and wisdom. Delta, Konan and Ada remain quiet as Retsu looks over the familiar face, but remains quiet. Naruto's gaze softens as he looks at the two Chunin, well recognizing the shock and confusion in their faces. "I understand this must be quite a surprise, but we don't have time for lengthy explanations right now. Could you please call Kakashi or take us to him?" he said, his tone gentle but firm. "Oh, of course." Izumo manages and fumbles for the communication device. "Lord 6, you're needed at the main gate, it's urgent." He speaks into the device, his voice cracking slightly. A tense silence falls over the group as they wait while Naruto faces the gates of Konoha, his hands resting on his cane, and a picture of calm amidst the nervous energy emanating from the two gate guards. Minutes tick by that feel like hours to Izumo and Kotetsu, who kept stealing glances at Naruto and his companions. The air shimmers with the distinctive sound of shunshin as Kakashi appears, his silver hair catching the sunlight, and at least a dozen Anbu materialize around him, their masks gleaming and bodies tense. "Such a hostile homecoming," Naruto said calmly, his voice carrying a hint of amusement mixed with resignation. His posture remains relaxed and leaning on his cane casually, even in the face of the potential threat posed by the Anbu squad. Kakashi's visible eye crinkles slightly as a sign of the complex emotions he is experiencing. "You'll have to forgive us, Naruto. 10 years is a very long time," he replies, his tone a mixture of caution and nostalgia. The tension in the air is palpable as the two men regard each other, years of history and unanswered questions hanging between them. The Anbu remain motionless while awaiting any sign from their Hokage, as Retsu keeps herself ready to step in if needed. I'm afraid we'll have to take you and your companions to Naruto. As of a few days ago I placed you in the bingo book, Kakashi says, his voice taking on a more official tone and his posture shifting slightly. Naruto's face remains impassive, but his eyes flick briefly to Retsu and a silent communication passing between them. Of course, he says, his tone revealing nothing of his thoughts. There seems to be a misunderstanding. Ada starts and steps forward. I work for Sasuke along with Retsu, Konan and Delta. We happened to encounter him, she adds, her voice smooth and captivating. Kakashi's eye widens slightly at this revelation as his gaze moves between Ada and Naruto. Very well, you four may enter the village, however Naruto, you'll be coming with us to tea, Kakashi said, his voice firm but not unkind after a tension-filled few moments. Naruto's expression remains calm with his blue eyes meeting Kakashi's gaze steadily. I understand here, you should hold on to this for now, Naruto said, his voice quiet but firm and offering his cane to Kakashi. The sixth Hokage takes the cane as his eye widens slightly at the weight and craftsmanship of the object. He could feel a strange energy emanating from it, but he pushes that observation aside for later consideration. Naruto then holds out his wrists to everyone's surprise, as if ready to be shackled. I'm ready now, he said with a small but almost sad smile playing on his lips. The action is so submissive and yet so dignified that it sends a shock through those watching. I'm a bit turned on, Retsu thought, seeing Naruto's quiet strength and acceptance. Kakashi hesitates for a moment and clearly taken aback by Naruto's willingness to comply. That won't be necessary, but I appreciate your cooperation, he finally said, motioning for Naruto to lower his hands. Shall we then, sensei, Naruto asks, a hint of his old self shining through in the familiar address. Kakashi nods with a complex mix of emotions flashing across his visible eye. Let's go, he said softly, gesturing for the Anbu to escort Naruto as they move away from the gate. People stop and stare as he passes with whispers following in his wake. I wonder how long will it take before they recognize you, Yusaka says, as Naruto keeps his gaze forward and his posture relaxed but alert. The Anbu escorts flank him silently with their masks betraying no emotion. Kakashi walks slightly ahead with his grip on Naruto's cane loose but present, but the weight of unspoken words hang heavy between them. They soon arrive at a nondescript building with its grey walls, a stark contrast to the colorful structures around it. They descend into the lower levels with the air growing cooler and the lighting dimmer. Naruto's footsteps echo in the quiet hallway, and they are a steady rhythm that matches his calm heartbeat. Are you ready, Kakashi asks, as they stop before a heavy metal door, and Naruto merely nods his head. The door creaks open to reveal a sparse room dominated by a metal table and chairs. The walls were a dull gray and designed to be oppressive, to wear down the resolve of those brought here. He steps inside and takes a seat without being prompted as Kakashi followed, placing the cane on the table between them before settling into the chair opposite. An Anbu secures Naruto's arms behind his back with handcuffs, a precaution. You may be senpai student, but he is Hokage, she says, securing his ankle to the floor, and she steps outside with a final sounding click. You understand, Naruto, Kakashi asks, and again Naruto nods his head as a moment later. Two more figures enter the room, and Naruto knows exactly who they were. The imposing presence of Ibiki Marino comes to loom behind him, while Anko Midarashi's distinctive scent of dango and snake oil wafts from his left. Well, if it isn't the #1 unpredictable ninja himself, though I guess ninja might not be the right word anymore, huh, Anko says, breaking to break the silence, a hint of amusement in her tone. It's good to see you too, Anko Midarashi, Naruto says, his voice calm and measured. Ibiki remains silent with his scarred face impassive as he studies Naruto. The tension in the room is palpable and a stark contrast to Naruto's relaxed posture. Kakashi leans forward with his elbows resting on the table. Naruto, you understand why you're here, don't you, he begins, his voice serious. Naruto's blue eyes met Kakashi's visible one with a flicker of something ancient and weary passing through them. I do, but I think there's been a misunderstanding about the nature of my absence, he replies, his voice calm but tinged with a hint of sadness. Well, enlighten us, Anko says, but Kakashi raises his hand to stop her. 10 years is a long time, Naruto. We've read Team 10's report about your meeting near Earth Country and the life you supposedly created for yourself as Jinrikisai Shijikuni Yamamoto, Kakashi says, his visible eye narrowing slightly. 10 years for me, sensei, it was over 2,000 years, Naruto says, his voice taking on a distant quality. Anko's eyes widen while Ibiki's stoic expression falters for a moment, but Kakashi leans back in his chair. What are you talking about, Naruto? Surely you don't believe that, Kakashi asks, his voice a mixture of concern and disbelief. The life you read about in Team 10's report, it's not a figment of my imagination, sensei, but the real truth, Naruto says, and his eyes drift to his cane on the table. It starts when I died 10 years ago fighting Sasuke in the Valley of End, when he abandoned this village, he adds, his eyes focused on Kakashi with an intensity that made the older man almost flinch. The silence that follows is deafening as Anko's usual smirk vanishes and is replaced by a look of shock. Even Ibiki's impassive facade cracks with his brow furrowing in confusion and disbelief. Naruto, what you're saying, it's impossible, Kakashi says with a mix of emotions flashing across his face like disbelief, concern and a hint of fear. Naruto leans forward with his blue eyes holding a depth that Kakashi has never seen before. I know it sounds unbelievable, sensei, but after I died in the Valley of the End, I found myself in a realm called the Soul Society, he said, his voice calm but tinged with a hint of sadness. In that world I was reborn as Yunrixai Shijikuni Yamamoto. I lived a long life there, sensei. I commanded an organization called the Gatei 13 while protecting the balance between the living and the dead. Naruto continues, his gaze never leaving Kakashi's face. Naruto, this is a lot to take in, Kakashi says, his visible eye on Naruto's cane. I know I lived that life for nearly 2 millennia, Kakashi sensei. I grew old, I led armies, I protected countless souls, but even that life came to an end, Naruto says with a nod and a small but sad smile playing on his lips. My death in that world came at the hands of a being known as the Quincy King, which it was a battle that shook the very foundations of that realm, he adds, his eyes clouded over with a memory that seems both distant and painfully fresh. The atmosphere in the room has shifts as the initial skepticism is giving way to a sort of stunned awe, and even Ibiki, known for his unshakable composure, is looking visibly affected by Naruto's words. If you died there, how are you here now, Anko says, her voice hesitant. That's where things get even more complicated. The Soul King and the linchpin of the 3 worlds sent me back here, Naruto says, and a flicker of appreciation for her question passing through his eyes. It was a sort of thank you, I suppose, for my service. This body you see before you, it's not quite the same as the one I had before, he adds, leaving out his mission against the Otsutsuki. Kakashi leans forward with his visible eye narrowing slightly. And what about the Kyuubi, Naruto, is it still, he asks, his voice low and cautious. Naruto's lips curves into a small and enigmatic smile, with his eyes flicking to the ornate cane that lay between them. Yusaka is here, not sealed within me, but contained within this staff, he said softly, his eyes moving back to Kakashi. Anko's eyes widen while darting between Naruto and the cane, as Ibiki's stoic facade cracks further, his scarred brow furrowing deeply. You mean to say that the Kyuubi is in this cane, Kakashi begins, his voice barely above a whisper. Naruto nods with his blue eyes holding a depth of wisdom that seems almost out of place on his youthful face. Yes, but she's no longer the Kyuubi as you knew her, and I am no Jinchuriki. Yusaka is no longer a Biju in the way you understand them, he says, his gaze meeting Kakashi's directly. Kakashi's grip on the cane loosens slightly, as if he suddenly realizes the true nature of what he is holding. How is this possible, Ibiki says, his gruff voice breaking the silence. The Soul King's power, it reshaped both Yusaka and me. We're different now, changed in ways that are hard to explain, Naruto says, his voice calm and patient. So if you're not a Jinchuriki anymore and the Kyuubi isn't a Biju, what exactly are you now, Anko says, moving the dango stick in her mouth. That's a complicated question. I'm still Naruto Uzumaki, but I'm also Jinrikisai Yamamoto, Naruto says with a soft sigh. I know this is a lot to take in, and I understand if you find it hard to believe. If my words aren't enough, I'm willing to submit to a more thorough examination. Perhaps a Yamanaka could verify my memories, he says, his tone steady and sincere. That's quite an offer, Naruto. Are you sure about this, Kakashi said, his voice a mix of caution and curiosity. I have nothing to hide. My experiences, as unbelievable as they may sound, are real. If having a Yamanaka verify them will help you understand and trust me, then I'm more than willing, Naruto says with a serious look. We'll need to discuss this. A Yamanaka mind probe is not something to be taken lightly, Ibiki says, his eyes never leaving Naruto's face as he rounds him. I understand, take all the time you need, Naruto replies, his calm demeanor unwavering. U acute o I grav macron. Sasuke sits in a dimly lit room in the hidden confines of NHQ, his expression unreadable as he faces code. The air is thick with tension, broken only by the soft hum of hidden machinery and the occasional whisper of fabric as operatives move silently through the shadows. An operative with face hidden behind a blank mask approaches Sasuke. Sasuke-sama, we've received word that Naruto Uzumaki has returned to the village. He's currently with the Hokage, and they are heading to the intelligence division, they whisper, leaning close and their voice barely audible. Interesting, it seems our prodigal ninja has saved us the trouble of seeking him out, Code muses, a hint of a smirk playing on his lips. Sasuke's eyes narrow slightly with his mind already racing by various possibilities. Indeed, this could work to our advantage, he replies, his voice low and measured. What do you propose, Sasuke? Should we make a move now or wait to see how things unfold? Code asks, his fingers drumming lightly on the armrest of his chair. The Uchiha remains silent for a moment, his gaze distant as he considers their options. We move now. Naruto's return presents an opportunity we can't afford to miss, Sasuke said, his voice low and decisive. Oh, and what do you have in mind? Code says, leaning forward and clearly intrigued. We'll take him to your dimension. There we can extract the Kyuubi without interference, Sasuke says, his tone matter of fact, while rising to his feet with his movements fluid and purposeful. Ambitious, but have you considered the consequences? You run the risk of angering Konoha by betraying them again. You do have a child to worry about now, Code remarks, a smirk playing on his face. No one in Konoha can stop me now, or you for that matter, Sasuke said, his voice laced with cold confidence and no care for his child. True enough, but sometimes it's not about raw power, it's about strategy, Code says, raising an eyebrow and impressed by Sasuke's boldness. Sasuke pauses for a moment with his mind working through the possibilities. We could frame it differently instead of a betrayal, but we make it look like I'm a prisoner, he said, his voice lowering conspiratorially. Go on, Code urges, curious to see where Sasuke's cunning mind is leading them. No one in Konoha knows about you or your abilities, we can use that to our advantage, Sasuke says, his eyes gleaming with a mix of determination and calculation. I'm listening, Code says, nodding slowly. We enter the cell where they're holding Naruto using your portal ability. You toss me out, making it look like I'm just another prisoner, then we take Naruto, Sasuke continues, his hands moving slightly as he explains his plan. The room falls silent for a moment as Code considers the plan, but soon a slow smile spreads across his face. It's risky, but it just might work. The element of surprise will be on our side, he said, standing up to face Sasuke directly. Exactly, they won't expect an attack from within, especially not from an unknown enemy that has resided underneath Konoha for years, Sasuke says with a satisfied smirk. Code begins to pace slowly with his mind working through the details of the plan. We'll need to time this perfectly, are you ready, he muses, his eyes focuses on Sasuke. Let's go, Sasuke says, his face set in grim determination. Back with Naruto sitting across from Kakashi with the tension in the air palpable as they await the arrival of Inoichi Yamanaka. The room is quiet except for the soft ticking of a clock on the wall and the occasional shift of fabric as one of them moves. Anko leans against the wall to the side with a dango stick hanging from her mouth. Naruto sits motionless with his hand still secured behind his back and attached to the chair. Kakashi watches him closely from across the table, his visible eye narrowing in concentration. Inoichi will be here soon, Kakashi says, a mix of caution and curiosity evident in his expression. Naruto nods with his eyes closed, but his head perks up suddenly as the area behind him seems to distort and ripple as a swirling vortex materializes. Kakashi's visible eye widens in shock as a figure steps through the purple-black portal. Code stands before Naruto, but Kakashi's attention is drawn to the person he is dragging behind him. Sasuke. Kakashi says, looking battered and seemingly unconscious. In an instant, the room erupted into chaos as Kakashi bolts up from his chair, his visible eye wide with shock and alarm as he reaches for his hit I-8. The scraping of the chair against the floor echoes through the room as he moves with lightning-fast reflexes. Naruto tenses his muscles and breaks free from his handcuffs. The sound of metal snapping fills the air as the restraints fall away to clatter to the ground. Code grabs Naruto from behind as the blonde grabs his cane. Not so fast, Kyuubi, Code sneers, his grip tightening on the head of Naruto's jacket. Kakashi's hands flash through hand signs and preparing a jutsu, but he is a fraction of a second too late. Anko sends her snakes from her sleeve, but she too is too late as Code pulls all three of them through the portal. Naruto. Kakashi shouts, his voice laced with urgency and frustration. The swirling vortex of energy crackles and pulses, its otherworldly glow casting eerie shadows across the room before closing. Anko slams her fist against the wall as her face is twisted with anger and disbelief. What the hell just happened? She growls, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for any trace of the disappeared shinobi. I don't know what just happened, but we need to find them fast, Kakashi admits, his voice low and tinged with frustration. He bends down to pick up the broken cuffs from the floor with the metal is still warm and he could feel traces of Naruto's chakra lingering on them. How? We don't even know where they went or who that guy was, Anko says, her eyes fixed on the cuffs in Kakashi's hands. We start by alerting the Anbu and setting up a village-wide search if needed spread outside Konoha, Kakashi says with his brow furrowed in concentration. Anko, I need you to go to the barrier team C if they detected any anomalies when that portal opened. It might give us a clue about where they went, he adds, his posture shifting as he slips into his role as Hokage. Got it, babe, Anko says, darting out of the room without another word. Kakashi's gaze sweeps over the room one last time, while lingering on the spot where Naruto and disappeared from. Naruto, Sasuke murmurs, his voice barely audible. At the same Retsu, Ada, Delta and Konan were carefully making their way through the crowd, their eyes alert for any signs of trouble and finding a place to be a base for now. Retsu's gaze suddenly locks onto a familiar figure with pink hair of Sakura Haruno, but she wasn't alone. Walking beside her is a young girl, no more than 4 years old, with jet black hair and glasses perched on her nose. The child's hand is clasped tightly in Sakura's and there is an unmistakable protective stance in the way Sakura carries herself. Is that? Retsu thought, her eyes widening in disbelief and her breath hitching. The implications of what she is seeing races through her mind that Sakura really had a child with Sasuke. She takes a step forward with her curiosity getting the better of her, but a hand grips her arm tightly. "We have problems," Ada says, her voice is low and urgent in her ear. "What do you mean?" Retsu says, confusion evident on her face. Ada's expression is grim as she meets Retsu's gaze. "Code has made his move, he's taken Naruto to his dimension," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The news hits Retsu like a physical blow as she glances back at Sakura and the child, who were now disappearing into the crowd and unaware of the drama unfolding around them. Retsu's eyes narrow and a cold smile plays across her lips, then Code and Sasuke have signed their death warrants, Naruto will not have to hold back anymore. He can use the full force of his Bankai, she said, her voice low and filled with a mixture of anticipation and grim satisfaction. Ada, Konan and Delta visibly stiffened at the mention of Naruto's Bankai, and a collective shudder ran through them as they remembered the terrifying heat of Naruto's Zanpakuto. Perhaps, but thanks to Code, Sasuke has awakened the Rin Sharingan, the Otsutsuki chakra has given him unprecedented power, Ada says, trying to regain her composure. Retsu turns to Ada with her smirk growing wider and a glint of excitement in her eyes. "No matter, Naruto has faced gods like foes before, this will be no different," she said, her confidence unwavering. "What's our next move?" Delta asks, folding her arms with a slight scoff. "We can't just stand here. If Naruto is facing both Code and Sasuke, he still might need backup," Ada says, nodding with Delta's sentiment. "As much as I hate to admit it, we can't reach that dimension. Code's abilities are beyond our current capabilities," Retsu said, her voice laced with frustration. Konan's eyes widen in surprise, and she wished she still had her former full Otsutsuki powers, "But surely there must be something we can do," she asks, her voice tinged with desperation. "For now our hands are tied, we have to wait and find a hotel to await Naruto's return," Retsu says, her lips pressed into a thin line. "Waiting doesn't sit well with me, it feels like we're abandoning him," Konan said, her amber eyes scanning the bustling village around them. "I understand your frustration, but Naruto is more than capable of handling himself. I've seen his power firsthand for over 2,000 years, our interference might do more harm than good," Retsu replies, her voice softening slightly. The group fall into an uneasy silence and continue through the bustling metropolis that is Konoha to await Naruto's return, but pray for his success. Music. Bleach TYBW Asta BATTLE loop. Naruto finds himself in a desolate landscape that has no buildings, no signs of anything but dark and ominous clouds overhead. He stands at the edge of a massive crater, its jagged edges a testament to some long ago cataclysm. The wind howls mournfully across the wasteland, kicking up small dust devils in the stance that dance across the scarred earth. Further in the distance are silhouettes of what might have once been mountains, now reduced to broken and twisted shapes on the horizon. "Quite the battlefield," Yasaka says, as Naruto's eyes were across the crater on the forms of Sasuke and Kota Isiki. Their posture relaxed but alert as Sasuke has his arms folded and a smirk playing on his lips as he gazes back at Naruto. "It's been a long time, Sasuke," Naruto said, and his voice carries easily across the empty expanse. 10 years yet you are still a traitor," he adds, and there is no anger in his tone, just a hint of weariness and perhaps a touch of disappointment. Sasuke's smirk widens slightly with his mismatched eyes gleaming from amusement and something darker, "Traitor. Perhaps, but Konoha welcomed me back when I saved them from Danzo's insurrection. Despite killing you or so I believed," he echoes back, his voice smooth and confident. Code watches the exchange with interest and his eyes darting between the two former teammates, but Naruto's eyes shift to him, "And you must be the last Otsutsuki." "Isiki," Naruto said, his voice low and steady. "You know me," Code states, more a confirmation than a question. Naruto leans forward on his cane with his blue eyes, never leaving Code's face. "Yes, I've killed your brethren, the one called father that led the Akatsuki Momoshiki who stole my original body, and his minder Kinshiki. You are the last Otsutsuki to kill," he said, his voice tinged with finality as his grip tightens on the cane. "You seem to know a lot, but knowledge isn't everything. You might have faced my kind before, but I assure you I'm not like the others," Code said, his voice carefully controlled. The wasteland around them seems to hold its breath, the wind dying down to a whisper as the three powerful figures face each other across the crater. The stage is set for a confrontation that could shape the fate of not just their world, but perhaps all worlds. Naruto slowly raises his left hand to the zipper of his jacket, with the soft sound of the zipper sliding down, seems impossibly loud in the eerie silence that had fallen over the desolate landscape. He shrugs off his coat while switch hands to his cane. "Tell me, Sasuke, how close in power to Code are you?" Naruto said, his voice carrying a hint of curiosity in his tone, but mixed with something that might have been concern. "Why do you ask?" Naruto worried about facing us both, Sasuke replies, his voice carefully neutral. "No, Sasuke, I'm worried about you. I would hate our rematch to spoil," Naruto says, and his blue eyes locked on his former teammate's mismatched eyes. "You see, once I get going fully, I fear you won't measure up to the likes of Code, let alone me," Naruto continues, his voice carrying a weight that seems to press down on the desolate landscape around them. Code and Sasuke begin to feel a warmth that is steadily growing but radiating from Naruto's form. Code's eyes narrow with his relaxed posture tensing almost imperceptibly while Sasuke tries to maintain his cool facade, but a bead of sweat forms on his brow. "You're bluffing, you've always had a habit of overestimating yourself," Naruto Sasuke said, but his voice lacked its usual confidence. The heat continues to rise and making the air around them waver like a mirage in the desert. "Enough talk, if you're as powerful as you claim, prove it," Code says, his voice tight with a mix of anticipation and caution. Naruto raises his cane and it immediately changes in Yasaka's Zanpakuto form and with deliberate slowness, draws her from the sheath and seal it into a seal on his glove before pointing the tip of his sword towards them. "Reduce all things in the universe to ash, Yasaka," Naruto declares, clear and commanding. Flames erupt around Naruto's form, burning with an intensity that makes the air itself seem to catch fire. The inferno swirls around him like a vortex of heat and power that scorches the already barren earth at his feet. The sudden burst of flames causes both Code and Sasuke to take defensive stances as the heat is intense, even from across the crater, and the roar of the fire drowns out all other sounds. Code's hair immediately turns white as a curved horn around his head emerges, his left eye gains Byakugan, and his right eye gains a golden pupil surrounded by a black wheel-like pattern with 8 spokes radiating from its center. Sasuke is not to be outdone as right Mangekyo Sharingan swirls into existence and his Rinnegan gains 6 Tomo within its rippled surface. "The table has set, now let us begin," Sasuke shouts over the roar flames. Naruto vanishes in the blink of an eye and catching both off guard, their enhanced eyes darting around the battlefield in search of their opponent. "Above!" Sasuke shouts, his Rinnegan pulsing as he sensed the incoming threat. Code looks up and catches sight of Naruto descending from the sky, his flaming sword leaving a trail of fire in its wake. The blade seems to stretch, growing longer as it plummeting towards them, and the heat intensifying with each passing second. Code and Sasuke leap backward with their movements a blur to the untrained eye. The ground where they stood erupts in a pillar of flame as Naruto's sword struck, sending shockwaves across the barren landscape. "He's faster than before," Sasuke says, a bead of sweat rolling down his temple. "This power, it's unlike anything I've encountered," Code says, his voice a mix of frustration and excitement. Naruto turns his attention back to his foes, his flames having a life of its own while twisting and writhing around his form. "Are you prepared for what comes next?" Naruto calls out, his eyes never leaving his opponents as he readies himself for their next move. Code's lips curl into a sinister smirk as he raises his hands in a ram sign, summoning a group of claw grimes, their sharp appendages gleaming in the flickering light of Naruto's flames. "Tell me, Naruto, how did it feel to kill your little friends Konohamaru, Mogi and Yuden?" as Claw Grimes, Code says, his voice dripping with malice. Naruto's grip on his sword tightens with the flames surrounding him growing more intense. "Indeed, those 3 followed you everywhere, didn't they? How did it feel to end the third's grandson?" Sasuke says, not one to miss an opportunity to twist the knife. The abominations charge forward with their claws extended and ready to tear into Naruto, moved with inhuman speed and closing the distance in mere seconds, but the blonde is faster. Naruto swings in one fluid motion and a wide arc of flame trailing in its wake as those twisted mockeries of people simply cease to be. Where they have been charging forward, there is now only ash and drifting slowly to the ground. The heat from Naruto's attack has been so intense that it incinerates them instantly and leaving no trace of their existence. "You speak of things you don't understand," Naruto said with his gaze moving from Code to Sasuke. "Now shall we continue, or have you finally realized the gravity of the situation you've put yourselves in?" he adds, as Yasaka is pointed directly at them. Code's response is swift and merciless, as with a burst of speed, leaps skyward and his white hair whipping in the wind. "Tsukina Hikona. Sameter," Code declares, his voice ringing out across the battlefield, and in an instant, a large group of black chakra rods coalesce above him, hanging suspended in the air for a heartbeat before separating and raining down upon Naruto in a deadly shower. Naruto's eyes narrow while assessing the incoming threat, but he vanishes in a blur of motion, his form seeming to flicker in and out of existence as he used Shunpo. The black rods embed themselves in the scorched earth where he was standing just moments before, their impact sending up small plumes of dust. "Amenetejikara," Sasuke murmurs as his voice barely audible over the chaos of the battle and swaps space with a chakra rod, Amaterasu. He shouts as the black flames erupt and seeming engulf Naruto in their unquenchable heat. But the triumph is short-lived as through the writhing black flames, Naruto's blade is descending in a powerful downward swing and Sasuke narrowly avoids the flaming sword to shatter the ground. Sasuke lands with skid as Naruto stands amongst the black flames. "Did you truly believe that the flames named for the goddess Amaterasu could stand against the flames of Yasaka herself?" Naruto asks, his form becoming visible as the black flames parted around him. "The Hakatan," Code shouts from above. The air above Naruto shimmers as a massive cube materializes, its edges sharp and gleaming in the firelight. It is an imposing sight of easily 20 feet in diameter, hovering ominously above Naruto's head as Sasuke shunshes away from the potential impact zone. Code's lips curl into a smirk as he releases his hold on the cube, allowing gravity to take over. The massive structure plummets towards Naruto, its shadow engulfing him as it descends with frightening speed. Naruto's gaze shifts upward and swings Yusaka upwards as he slices through the cube as if it were made of paper. The two halves of the cube fall to either side of Naruto, crashing into the ground with a thunderous impact that sends tremors through the earth. Dust and debris billow outward and momentarily obscuring the battlefield. The dust settles with Naruto standing unscathed as Code's smirk vanishes, replaced by a look of utter disbelief. "Impossible," Code mutters, his voice barely audible over the settling debris. Before Code could fully process what has happened, his foe vanishes in a blur of motion and Naruto's hand grips his face. "Too slow," Naruto said, his voice calm but filled with an undercurrent of power. With a swift movement, tosses Code downward and sending him hurtling towards the ground at breakneck speed. Code crashes into the earth with a thunderous impact, creating a small crater where he lands. "Shinra Tensei." Sasuke calls out, unleashing a powerful gravitational force. The invisible blast catches Naruto off guard and sending him soaring higher into the sky. As Naruto is propelled upward while Sasuke's hands blur through a series of hand signs and his chest swells as he inhales deeply, preparing for his next attack. "Taiten. Murka no Jutsu." Sasuke exclaims, exhaling several massive fireballs in the shape of dragon heads. The flaming projectiles roar as they cut through the air, leaving trails of smoke in their wake as they home in on Naruto's airborne form. Naruto avoids them with ease as the dragon head fireballs pass harmlessly by, their heat barely grazing him as he wove between them. The cloudy skies begin to darken while casting an ominous shadow over the battlefield, and thunder rumbles in the distance that is a portent of the storm to come. Sasuke allows a small smirk to cross his face, as if this turn of events is all part of some greater strategy. "You've improved, Naruto, but don't think for a moment that you've seen everything I'm capable of." Sasuke calls out, his voice carrying. Naruto lands gracefully on the ground with his eyes never leaving Sasuke. "I could say the same to you, Sasuke," Naruto replies, his voice steady and resolute. The gathering storm clouds overhead seem to pulse with energy, as if nature itself is waiting for what comes next. Code appears next to Sasuke with Shunshin, but eyes glint with a mixture of excitement and malice as he observes the darkening sky. "You intend to use Kirin," Code states, his voice low and filled with anticipation. Sasuke's lips curls into a confident smirk. "Of course he may be fast, but not even he is fast enough to dodge lightning," he replies, his eyes never leaving Naruto. Naruto's gaze shifts upward while taking in the ominous thunderclouds that now blanket the sky. A few bolts of lightning split the sky while striking the ground with earth-shattering force, and the impacts leave small craters in the already scarred battlefield. Sasuke raises his left hand skyward as his Chidori begins to form and the chirping sound of 1,000 birds filling the air. Music change. Zanka no Tachi East Yamamoto's Bankai theme epic orchestral cover loop. "Naruto. You will die with the thunderclap." Sasuke calls out, his voice echoing over the rumble of thunder. But instead of the shock or fear Sasuke might have expected, instead a grin slowly spreads across Naruto's face and in an instant, all the flames that have been surrounding him vanish to leave behind an eerie calm. "Bankai Zanka no Tachi," Naruto said calmly, his voice equally calm and as the words leaves his lips. The blade that was once gleaming and wreathed in flames is now severely scorched, as if it has been through the hottest of infernos. The air around Naruto shimmers with intense heat, though no flames were visible. Sasuke's eyes widen slightly but touches his lips, noticing they were suddenly chapped as if all moisture has been sucked from the air. What is more alarmingly is the thunderclouds he so carefully cultivated were dissipating, the electrical charge in the atmosphere fading away, and Code is equally shocked but focuses on Naruto. "All those flames have vanished, but the heat it's still here and more intense than ever," Code mutters, his voice a mixture of confusion and awe. Naruto's grin widens slightly and his blue eyes gleaming. "You're right, Code, the flames aren't gone. They're just concentrated," he said and points his scorched blade. "This is the true form of Yusaka, the Zanka no Tachi, all of its power compressed into this blade and my body," he adds, the air around the sword wavering and distorting by the incredible heat it was emitting. "Don't think this changes anything, will still," Code says, his body tensing for action while sensing the shift in the battle's momentum, but before he could finish his sentence. Naruto vanishes and reappears between his foes, his scorched blade high above his head and coming down. Sasuke's eyes widen as his Sharingan spinning wildly as he recognizes the imminent danger before both vanish, just as Naruto's blade begins its descent. The tip of the sword touches and the effect is catastrophic as the ground vaporizes in an ever-expanding circle that reaches out nearly 20 feet in every direction. Where once there had been solid earth, now there was nothing, as if it was never there. "Zanka no Tachi Higashi." Kyokujitsujin, Naruto said simply, the words hanging in the air and heavy with the promise of destruction. Sasuke realizes the full extent of the threat before him as the purple ribs of his trump card coalescing into a massive and ethereal form that towers over the battlefield. The fully manifested Susanoo rises to its full height, its purple armor gleaming with an otherworldly light. Sasuke hovers at its center of the forehead, protected by layers of chakra strong enough to withstand the mightiest of attacks. The Susanoo's eyes glow with the same determination that burn in Sasuke's own gaze and are fixed firmly on Naruto as Code hovers beside the towering titan. The battlefield falls silent for a moment as the three combatants are locked in a tense standoff, but the stillness is short-lived as both Sasuke and Code spring into action simultaneously. Sasuke's Susanoo begins to shift with its massive form reconfiguring as chakra coalesces in its hands. A longbow of crackling lightning forms with its energy so intense that it casts an eerie blue glow across the devastated landscape. An arrow of equally charged with lightning chakra materialized and is knocked in place. The air around the Susanoo sizzled with electricity, small sparks dancing along its ethereal form. Not bad for the Uchiha, Yasaka says, as Naruto shifts his gaze to Code. His eyes glint with malice as he channels his power. A massive black chakra rod begins to form in his hands and growing rapidly, expanding until it is nearly 10 feet long and 4 feet wide. Naruto remains motionless despite the imminent threats in front of him, flashes of battle his with Iwich, his failure to defeat the Quincy King, his failure of his duty and his death, but this time he would not fail. Susanoo's arrow. Sasuke roar, his Susanoo's massive bow creaking as it releases and sending the lightning-infused arrow hurtling towards Naruto with blinding speed. Code thrusts his arms forward and launches the black chakra rod with a fierce cry, Karakatsuchi. He echoes as the rod cuts through the air and leaving a trail of distorted space in its wake. Both attacks converge on Naruto, closing the distance rapidly as the very fabric of reality seems to warp around the incoming projectiles. Naruto grips his scorched sword with both hands and raises over his head as if to swing downward while time seems to slow. Zanka no Tachi Nishi. Zanjitsu Gakui, Naruto intones, his voice barely registered. The scorched blade cuts through the air and with it comes an inferno unlike anything the world has ever seen. A wall of heat erupts from the sword while expanding outward with terrifying speed. The temperature skyrockets instantly and turning the very air into plasma. Sasuke's arrow and Code's chakra rod simply ceased to exist and were vaporized in an instant, leaving not even ash behind. The heat wave continues to expand with its intensity rivaling that of the sun itself. The ground beneath their feet begins to melt and turning to slag in seconds as Sasuke's eyes widen in disbelief, his Susanoo's armor begins to peel away, layer by layer, unable to withstand the incredible heat. Code struggles to adapt to the overwhelming force bearing down on them as the inferno rages on, incinerating everything in its path with unstoppable force. If not for my Otsutsuki DNA I would ashes right now. Sasuke is barely keep up, where did Naruto his power from it as a small son had been birthed, Code thought, its fury unleashed upon the world. Naruto's eyes scans the area while searching for any sign of his adversaries through the shimmering heat waves and pillars of flames. His eyes widen as Zanka no Tachi suddenly vanishes from his grasp and in its place is Sasuke with his right foot already in motion. The kick connects squarely with Naruto's face, the impact sending him skidding backwards across the molten ground. Naruto grunts with his feet leaving deep furrows in the semi-liquid earth, but as he gains his foots, his eyes snap up to see Code with a malicious grin spreading across his face. The Kakutin. Tsukina Hikona. Smjiki. Code's voice booms in the sky. Two massive cubes materialize as their surfaces gleaming with an otherworldly light before plummeting towards Naruto with frightening speed. Naruto's muscles tenses as he throws his hands up with his palms meeting the surface of the lower cube, his arms straining against the immense weight. The ground beneath his feet cracks and sinks, the heat from his earlier attack having weakened its integrity and the downwards force ripping away his long-sleeved shirt. Sasuke and Code watch intently, their expressions a mix of anticipation and wariness. They know no better than to underestimate Naruto, even in this precarious position. Then it happens as a deafening crack splits the air from the cubes, which seemed so immovable just moments ago were beginning to splinter and fracture. Airline cracks spread across their surfaces like lightning bolts, growing wider with each passing second. Impossible. Code mutters, clenching his fist in a rage. With a thunderous boom, the cubes shatter into countless fragments, raining down around Naruto like a bizarre hailstorm. Sasuke's breath hitches as he tries to process what he is seeing, but Naruto vanishes to appears in front of him, with his fist already in motion. Did you think taking Zanka no Tachi from me would stop me? Naruto says as his fist continues its unstoppable trajectory. Sasuke's muscles tenses with his body instinctively trying to defend against the incoming blow, but deep down, knows that it is already too late. Bikatsu, Naruto utters, his voice chillingly cold. The fist connects with Sasuke's stomach and the impact is so intense that the air itself seems to compress around the point of contact. Sasuke's body is launched backward with terrifying speed, his form blurring as he crossing the distance of an entire city block in mere seconds. Sasuke's body finally comes to rest with a sickening crunch, cratering the ground where he lands, but he was dead before he came to rest. Naruto's gaze shifts from Sasuke's lifeless form to Code, but he is already countering, reappearing in front of Naruto with a kick already in motion. Sensei Kayaku. Code shouts, his boot aimed directly at Naruto's head. But Naruto is faster as his hand shoots out, catching Code's foot mid-strike. The blonde's grip tightens and Code's eyes widens as he feels an intense heat beginning to spread from where Naruto holds him. The Kakutin. Men. Code cries out, pointing his hand with grin on his face. A concentrated blast of flames erupt from Code's hand and engulfs Naruto in an inferno. Code leaps back as the flames die down, but Naruto stands unharmed, his clothes and body not even singed by the attack. Naruto vanishes before Code could process what has happened, reappearing directly in front of Code with both fists raised and poised to strike. "It's over Otsutsuki Samkatsu," Naruto said, his voice calm but filled with finality. Code's eyes widen in panic and tries to activate Tsukina Hakona to shrink himself and escape, but it is too late. Naruto's fists connect with devastating force, the impact so great that the air itself seems to shatter. Code releases a voiceless scream as his body is destroyed completely into nothing but scattered particles. Naruto stands alone on the inferno of a battlefield but lets out a deep breath and his shoulders relaxing slightly. "It is done," he said softly, his voice carrying a mix of relief and weariness. His eyes flick to his right hand, where a small but intricate seal is etched into his glove, and with a pulse of chakra his sword returns to his hand. The overwhelming power of his Bankai begins to recede, like a tide pulling back from the shore. The intense heat that has been radiating from his body slowly dissipated and the air around him cools while a storm begins to fall from the heat. "Konoha would be nothing if you used it there," Yasaka says, as Naruto flash steps to where Sasuke is and the crater filling with water. Naruto kneels and closes the Uchiha's eyes as rain washes over them before hefting him onto his shoulder. "You'll need a cover story as to why he is dead," Yasaka said, her tone matter of fact. "I'll simply say Code killed him, he died protecting me," Naruto says simply, a crack of thunder echoing. "Why protect him? He's a traitor," Yasaka says, her voice tinged with confusion and a hint of frustration. "The Konoha he paid his due by saving them in darkest hour, so I let them remember as a shinobi of the leaf," Naruto replies softly. "Alright, but how do we escape here? This is a different dimension," Yasaka says, a hint of urgency and resignation in her tone. Naruto's brow furrows as his eyes fell on his sword still gripped tightly in his free hand. "Perhaps a Senkaman could work," he muses aloud. But before Naruto could act on his idea, a familiar sound filled the air behind him. The distinctive sliding of wooden doors echoes as his eyes widening in surprise when he turns. A Senkaman has materialized to reveal a familiar figure, Ichiban Himesub, Naruto says as the commander squad steps out, his imposing form a stark contrast to the desolate surroundings. His eyes are hidden beneath bushy eyebrows, but hold a mix of amusement and respect. "You could use a door back to Konoha, Captain Commander, one last gift from the Soul King," Ichiban said, his deep voice carrying easily across the distance. "Thank you then, Ichiban Himesub," Naruto said, genuine gratitude in his voice. Naruto steps forward with a nod of acknowledgement to Ichiban and Sasuke's body still draped over his shoulder. Naruto passes through the glowing doorway and desolate landscape behind him begins to fade, but the last thing he sees before the Senkaman closed is Ichiban's knowing smile. Song ends. The barrier team's headquarters is a hive of activity when Kakashi arrives as sensors and chakra experts pore over scrolls and instruments, their faces creased with concentration. Anko is already there for him with her usual playful attitude, replaced by a grim determination, anything he asks, his voice tight with barely contained urgency. "Nothing, Lord Hokage, whatever that portal was, it didn't trigger any of our sensors, it's as if it never existed," the head of the barrier team says, a veteran Yamanaka Kunoichi with graying hair. Kakashi's visible eye narrows with a sigh, "So this enemy can slip in and out of the village with ease, this is worse than we thought," he says, his voice low and dangerous. "What now?" Anko says, clenching one of her fists. Kakashi is silent for a moment with his mind racing through possibilities. "We expand the search, and we need to inform Sakura immediately, she deserves to know what's happened to Sasuke," he says, and his voice softening slightly. "I'll head back to my office, have the Anbu contact Sakura, and bring her there," he says, his voice firm, but tinged with concern. "Got it, babe, I'll make sure she gets there quickly," Anko says, her eyes softening as she looks at her husband. "I'll head out now," Anko says, her voice regaining its usual edge. Kakashi makes his way back to the Hokage Tower, the village below him is a blur of activity. He takes a deep breath upon entering his office, steeling himself for the difficult conversation ahead. He walks to the large window behind his desk, gazing out at the village he's sworn to protect. A soft knock on the door breaks his reverie. Enter Kakashi calls out, turning to face the entrance. The door opens and Sakura steps in with her face a mix of confusion and worry. In her arms is her 4-year-old daughter Sarada, who looks around the room with curious dark eyes. Kakashi-sensei, the Anbu said it was urgent. What's happening? Where's Sasuke? Sakura says, her voice tight with barely contained anxiety. Kakashi's visible eye softens as he looks at Sakura and Sarada. Please sit down Sakura, he says, gesturing to the chairs in front of his desk. Sakura hesitates for a moment before taking a seat, settling Sarada on her lap, and the little girl looks up at her mother, sensing the tension in the room. Sakura, there's no easy way to say this. Sasuke has been taken, Kakashi says, leaning against his desk, and his posture deliberately relaxed in an attempt to soften the blow of his next words. Taken? What do you mean by who? Sakura says, her eyes widen and her grip on Sarada tightening instinctively. We're not entirely sure. An unknown enemy appeared in the village bypassing all our defenses. They took Sasuke, but also Naruto, Kakashi says, running a hand through his silver hair. Naruto? But he died 10 years ago. How is that possible? Sakura says, a mix of confusion and disbelief clouding her features. A few weeks ago Ino, Shikamaru and Choji were on a mission near the land of Earth. They found something unexpected. They found a very much alive Naruto, Kakashi explains and pauses, letting the weight of his words sink in, and Sakura gasps. I kept it a secret initially. We needed to confirm things to understand what had happened. It was a delicate situation, Kakashi continues, his voice low and measured. And now what changed? Sakura says with a small nod, her mind racing to process this information. About 2 hours ago Naruto came to Konoha. I had him taken to tea. We needed to learn what had happened over the past decade, to understand where he'd been and how he'd survived, Kakashi said, his expression growing more serious. But you said he was taken. What happened? Sakura says with a mix of emotions playing across her face like hope, confusion, and a hint of fear. We were in the middle of the interrogation when an unknown enemy attacked. They took both Naruto and Sasuke, Kakashi says, his voice taking on a grimmer tone. I don't understand. How could this happen? Our defenses are barrier jutsu, Sakura said, her voice trembling. That's what we're trying to figure out. Whoever this enemy is, they possess abilities we've never encountered before. They bypassed all our defenses, as if they weren't even there, Kakashi says, his own frustration evident in his voice. Mama, where's Papa? Sarada says, sensing her mother's distress and looks up with worried eyes. Papa's on a very important mission, sweetheart, but don't worry, he'll be back soon, Sakura says while swallowing hard, fighting back tears as she strokes her daughter's hair. Kakashi watches the interaction with his heart heavy and comes around the desk. Your papa is very strong, Sarada, and we're going to do everything we can to bring him home, he says, his voice gentle and kneeling down to Sarada's eye level. Sarada nods solemnly with her small face set in a determined expression that reminds Kakashi so much of Sasuke. Sakura, I know this is difficult, but we need your help, Kakashi says, his voice becoming more businesslike. Of course, Kakashi-sensei, I'll do whatever it takes, but what about Sarada? Sakura says, her initial shock giving way to determination. We'll arrange for the best protection for her, Kakashi says, assuring her. I'll do what I can to help for Sasuke and for Naruto, Sakura says with a nod, her eyes filled with a mix of determination and worry. Just as Kakashi is about to respond, the door bursts open and an Anbu operative enters. Lord Hokage. There's an anomaly on the roof, we need you immediately. The Anbu says, his mask glinting in the office light. Kakashi's visible eye narrows with his body tensing. Stay here with Sarada, I'll handle this, he says, his voice urgent but calm. Kakashi dashes out of the office towards the roof with his mind racing without waiting for a response from Sakura. As he reaches the roof of the Hokage Tower and is joined by a squad of Anbu operatives as they survey the scene. A pair of shoji doors materializes out of thin air with their wooden frames glowing with an otherworldly light. The Anbu tense with weapons at the ready as the doors slowly slide open. A figure emerges from the blinding light and Kakashi's eye widens in disbelief. Naruto steps out while looking battle-worn but very much alive, and what truly shocks Kakashi is the sight of Sasuke slung over Naruto's right shoulder. Naruto? What happened? How did you? Kakashi calls out, his voice a mix of relief and confusion. The enemy is defeated, but Sasuke lost his life in the process, Naruto says, his voice calm but heavy with emotion, and gently lowers Sasuke's body to the ground. A collective gasp ripples through the Anbu squad as Kakashi feels his heart sink, the initial relief at seeing Naruto quickly replaced by a crushing sense of loss. He died a hero of the Leaf. He fought with everything he had right until the end. Naruto continues, gripping his cane and his eyes downcast and creating a narrative. Kakashi approaches slowly with his visible eye fixed on Sasuke's still form. Naruto, can you tell us what happened? Kakashi says softly, looking to his former student. The enemy, he called himself Code. Sometimes he referred to himself as Isiki, Naruto says, after taking a deep breath. Code? Isiki? I've never heard those names, Kakashi says, his visible eye widens slightly. He was terrifyingly strong, faster than anything I've ever seen. One moment we were fighting side by side, and the next he killed Sasuke with a single punch to the chest. I couldn't even react in time, Naruto says, nodding grimly with a sigh. The Anbu squad shifts uneasily with the gravity of the situation settling heavily upon them. Naruto takes a deep breath with his blue eyes meeting Kakashi's gaze. I used my Bankai to defeat Code and managed to escape, Naruto says, his voice a mix of exhaustion and determination. Kakashi's visible eye widen with a flicker of confusion passing across his face. Bankai. He repeats, the unfamiliar term hanging in the air between them. It's a long story, Sensei, one I promise to explain in time, Naruto says, a ghost of a smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. I see, I'll tell Sakura and Sarada, Kakashi says, turning his gaze to Sasuke's still form and his expression softening with sorrow. Sarada, I see Sasuke and Sakura have a child together, Naruto says, surprise evident in his eyes as his voice filled with curiosity and a hint of realization. Yes, a daughter, she's 4 years old now, Kakashi says with a nod and his voice gentle. I see, Naruto whispers, a mix of emotions flickering across his face. Naruto, I know you've been through a lot, but for now we need you to go back to tea until we can clear things up, Kakashi says, his voice taking on a more official tone. Naruto looks up and meets Kakashi's gaze but nods slowly. I understand, Sensei, there's a lot to explain, and I know you need to be sure of everything, Naruto says, his voice tired but resolute. Thank you for understanding, Naruto, we'll make this process as quick as possible, Kakashi says, a mix of sympathy and approval in his gaze. As two Anbu operatives step forward to escort Naruto, allowing him to cast one last glance at Sasuke's still form before letting himself be led away. Kakashi signals to the remaining Anbu with a heavy sigh, prepare Sasuke's body for transport and send word to the medical team, we have a lot of work ahead of us, he orders, his voice low and respectful. U umlaut o acute o umlaut I grav macron. Night is descended upon the village as Retsu and company manage to find an inconspicuous hotel on the outskirts of the newer section of town. The four women find themselves sharing the cramped space as Retsu and Ada took one bed, while Delta and Conan occupy the other. Retsu is spooning Ada while seeking comfort in the warmth of her companion, and the former captain senses remains on high alert, constantly reaching out for any sign of Naruto's Ryatsu. It is in the quietest hours of the night that Retsu feels it, his familiar presence washing over her like a wave as relief floods through her, but she remains still, not wanting to disturb the others. You've done it, Retsu thought, holding Ada close and a small smile on her face. Retsu closes her eyes while savoring the moment, but her peace is short-lived as the following days brings a whirlwind of rumors and conflicting information. Did you hear? Naruto Uzumaki is and they've got him locked up in T, one villager whispers to another. Naruto? Didn't he die a decade ago, the other responds, shock evident in their voice. Retsu continues her trek, but another piece of news strikes her, learning Sasuke was dead, and her thoughts turn to Sakura and the little girl she had seen days earlier. Retsu couldn't help but feel a pang of sympathy for the pink-haired Kunoichi, losing the father of her child must be devastating. She nears the Hyuga compound, and her heart begins to race as the familiar white-walled buildings loom before her, a sight she has known so well in her previous life as Hinata. I wonder how they are, Father Hanabi Niji, Retsu thought, her hand resting on the rough bark of a nearby tree and hidden by a Kido. Retsu's eyes scan the compound while searching for any sign of her family, but a lump forms in her throat as she catches a glimpse of Hanabi. She is now a grown woman, walking through the courtyard, and her little sister has matured into a strong but graceful Kunoichi. Should I kunai, Retsu thought, letting her feet carry her towards her, but how would she explain coming back from the dead? She vanishes from the Hyuga compound as her heart aches with unspoken words. She wanders through the familiar streets of Konoha, her feet seeming to have a mind of their own and leading her towards Ichiraku Ramen. The savory aroma of miso and pork fills the air as she nears the small stand, but a firm hand grips her shoulder. Excuse me, ma'am, a voice spoke from behind her. Retsu turns to find herself face to face with two Anbu operatives. We need you to come with us, the second says, their porcelain masks hiding any hint of emotion. Retsu's eyes narrow slightly with her body tensing imperceptibly. May I ask why, she inquires, her voice calm, but laced with an undercurrent of authority that seems to catch the Anbu off guard. Orders from the Hokage, please follow us to the tower, the taller of the two Anbu says with a clearing of his throat. Retsu could easily overpower these two and disappear into the crowd, but curiosity gets the better of her. If Kakashi wanted to see her, perhaps it is time to face the music. Very well, Retsu says, following the Anbu leader through the bustling streets. The walk to the Hokage tower is tense and silent, but Retsu could feel the eyes of villagers on her, no doubt wondering what this strange woman has done to warrant an Anbu escort. They soon reach Kakashi's office, and Retsu is led inside as sees Kakashi behind his desk, but her ocean blue eyes drift to the familiar figure of Naruto near the window and dressed Konoha attire. Kakashi's visible eye crinkles in what might have been a smile beneath his mask. "Thank you for coming. I must say you look very different, Hinata," he said, his tone casual as if this were nothing more than a friendly visit. "How did you?" Retsu says, her composure slipping for just a moment. "Naruto told me everything. I didn't want to believe it at first. It seemed too fantastical even for our world of shinobi," Kakashi said, his visible eye fixed on Retsu, and her eyes drift to Naruto, but he nods. "We had the Yamanaka clan confirm it. I saw his life as Jinrikisai Yamamoto and yours as Retsu Anohana," Kakashi says with his fingers steepled in front of him. "You were quite the hellion, Hinata Retsu," he adds, a hint of amusement crept into his voice. "I suppose I was in those early days," Retsu admits, her lips curling into a rueful smile. "It's a lot to take in, the idea that you both lived entire lives in another realm, gained immense power, and have now returned to our world. It's unprecedented," Kakashi continues, his tone growing more serious. Retsu nods with her ocean blue eyes meeting Kakashi's gaze. "Yes it is," she replies, her voice calm and measured. Naruto steps forward to reach out and takes Retsu's hand with his grip warm and reassuring. "I trust things will be settled, Kakashi-sensei," Naruto said, his voice carrying the weight of his experiences. "Yes, your entry in the bingo book will remain, but with a flea on side order attached, and you will be officially retired from Konoha's ranks," Kakashi says, his tone carrying a hint of resignation mixed with respect. "Thank you, Kakashi-sensei, we understand the position this puts you in. Your decision is appreciated," Retsu said, her voice soft but firm. "I won't pretend to fully understand everything you've been through, but I trust in both of you. The power you hold, it's beyond anything we've seen. Use it wisely," Kakashi says, his posture relaxing slightly. "Thank you, Kakashi-sensei," Naruto says, giving him a curt nod. They turn to leave the office with twin bows, and Retsu couldn't help but feel a sense of closure. "Hey, what about Ada, Delta and Konan?" Naruto asks, as they make their way down the winding stairs of the tower. "They're exploring the village," Retsu says, a small smile playing on her lips, and Naruto slowly nods. They step out into the bustling streets of Konoha with the sun warm on their faces. "So how much longer do you want to stay here?" he said, his voice carrying a hint wonder. "A few days, maybe a chance to say goodbyes if you like," Retsu says, taking in the sights and sounds of the village she once called home. "And then off to Snow Country," Naruto says, gripping his cane a little. "Indeed, our quiet life with our unconventional family," Retsu said, a faint smile on her face. "An unconventional family, huh? Never thought I'd see the day when Hinata Hyuga would be okay with that," Naruto says, shaking his head slightly. "I haven't been just Hinata Hyuga for a very long time, Naruto. Besides, after everything we've been through, a little unconventional happiness seems well deserved, don't you think?" Retsu says with a raised eyebrow, a mischievous glint in her eyes. 2 years pass in the blink of an eye. The harsh winters and blooming springs of Snow Country or Spring Country become home to Naruto, Retsu, Ada, Konan and Delta. They find themselves working for Koyuki and the country's beloved leader, helping her to maintain peace and prosperity in the land. On a crisp spring afternoon, Retsu, Ada, Delta and Konan sit with Koyuki in her lavish lounging room. The air is filled with the soft clink of teacups and the gentle rustling of fabric as the women shift in their seats. All 5 sport rounded bellies and a testament to the new life blooming within them. Retsu's fingers move deftly as she knits a pair of tiny booties, the soft yarn a pale yellow that reminds her of Naruto's hair. Ada and Delta were engaged in a quiet conversation about nursery designs, while Konan folds intricate origami mobiles for the babies' rooms. "You know, I still can't believe how you managed to scare people with just a simple smile," Retsu, Koyuki says, reclining on a plush chaise lounge and a hint of laughter in her voice. Retsu looks up from her knitting, and her eyes twinkle with mirth. "Oh, and how do I do that, Koyuki?" she asks innocently, though the corners of her mouth twitching upwards. "It's that look in your eyes like you know something they don't. It's quite effective, and especially when dealing with stubborn council members," Koyuki says, shaking her head and stroking her belly. Retsu's smile widens with a hint of her former self gleaming in her eyes. "Well, when you've been the captain of a squad of healers, or nurses as some used to call them, you learn a thing or two about dealing with stubborn individuals," she said, while setting her knitting aside and leaning forward slightly. "Sometimes I had to remind them who I used to be. The name Kenpachi wasn't given lightly," she adds, her voice taking on a slightly darker tone that sent a shiver down Koyuki's spine. "It's true, I've seen hardened warriors practically melt under that smile of yours," Ada says, her voice warm with affection. "It's a formidable weapon," Delta adds, a hint of admiration in her tone. "I think it's because they can sense the power behind that smile. Even if they don't know your history, they can feel it," Konan muses, setting aside her latest origami creation of a delicate crane. Retsu's smile softens as she looks at her companions. "Perhaps, but I prefer to use it for more domestic purposes these days," she said, her voice gentle. "Speaking of domestic matters, have you heard about Naruto's book? He's close to finishing publishing the next volume. It's causing quite a stir in the literary world. Many believe it to be pure fantasy, but we know it's all real," Ada says, her eyes sparkling with excitement. Retsu's eyes twinkle with amusement as she places a hand on her swollen belly. Indeed, and soon he'll have 5 children to tell those stories to. I can already imagine him surrounded by our little ones, regaling them with tales of Soul Society and the Gate 13, she said, her voice warm with affection. It's strange to think that our children will grow up hearing about worlds and battles that most people can't even imagine, Conan says with a smile. Do you think they'll inherit any of your abilities? Delta asks, her voice curious but cautious. Retsu's expression turns thoughtful. It's hard to say, who knows what gifts our children might possess, she replied, her fingers tracing gentle circles on her belly. Well, whatever abilities they inherit, they're certainly going to have an interesting childhood. 5 mothers, a father with the power of the sun and bedtime stories that could fill a library. They'll be the envy of every kid in Spring Country, Koyuki says with a soft laugh. The women share a laugh as the sound filling the room with warmth and joy. You know, I never imagined this would be my life back when I was just hinata, or even during my time now Captain Unohana. The idea of this would seem impossible, Retsu said, her voice soft but clear while gesturing around the room at her companions and their pregnant bellies. Ada reaches out and takes Retsu's hand to squeeze it gently. Life has a way of surprising us, but I think this surprise is a good one, she said, her voice filled with understanding. The best kind. Our children will grow up surrounded by love, strength and wisdom from all corners of existence. What more could we ask for, Retsu says, her smile returning and taking in the sight of her fellow mothers to be, each unique and beautiful in their own way. As the conversation drifts to lighter topics like nursery colors and baby names, Retsu finds herself lost in thought, imagining Naruto and his blue eyes shining with pride, teaching their children about chakra and Zanpakuto. She pictures herself demonstrating healing techniques and sword forms while passing on the knowledge of 2 lifetimes. It is a future she has never dared to dream of, yet now it stretches before her, full of promise and possibility. And as she feels the gentle movements of the life growing within her, as Retsu knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together as a family. The end. What if Naruto trained by Yamamoto? Bleach end here, and thanks for watching my video till the end.